Good evening, everyone. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, everyone, thank you for coming in tonight. Call to order, we have that. Adopting the agenda, is there a motion? Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. Any discussion on the agenda? If not, yes, ma'am.
I would like to pull 4.5 and 4.6 from the
Well, let's
consent.
wait till we get to the consent agenda. That'll be coming up next.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, stand by. All right, any questions on the adoption of the agenda? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Under consent agenda, did you just want to discuss, have a question about something?
Yeah, I want to discuss.
Okay, you just have a question on something or what?
No, I want to
We'll have
discuss.
discussion. Okay.
Yeah.
Which ones again?
4.5 and 4.6.
Consideration visitor first.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Pam, you messed me up already.
I didn't mean to do that.
That's why, Ross.
I know that's Rob helps us out.
Thank you, Rob. All right, consideration of visitors tonight, we have 4 people speaking tonight for consideration of visitors. Please, visitors, understand what the rules are for tonight. You'll be a 2-minute presentation per person. At the 30-second mark, you'll see a marker go up, so you have 30 seconds. At the 2-minute mark, you hear a little ding ding. At that point, you'll be done speaking. Again, if you're first-time speaker for consideration of visitors, we do not have discussion with you at the podium. If you wish to have somebody from the board to get a hold of you, let us know, they'll call you back. Otherwise, there will not be discussion, so after you give your presentation, please just have a chair. All right, we'll start off tonight, first one will be Richard. Take one down.
The salvation of the state is the watchfulness of its citizens. The salvation of the schools is also watchfulness of its citizens, including the parents and grandparents and also the community in general. Only when evil is forced into the light can we defeat it. Only when they can no longer operate in the shadows can people see the truth for themselves. Only when people see the truth for themselves will people understand the true nature of the deception. Seeing is believing. Sometimes you cannot tell the public the truth, you must show them. Only then will people find the courage to change. The fact that we have parents and community members complaining about books shows that there is some validity to the argument that there are pornographic books in the schools. Perhaps the school administration and the school board should take notice and change the policy to eliminate these pornographic materials. It is not banning books, it is only limiting the access to those who are most vulnerable. If you have to hide the curriculum and library books from the parents of your students, you don't belong in a classroom or in close proximity to anyone's children. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Next up tonight will be Russell Lindstrom.
Good evening. I hate to just read this, but I prepared a statement to be read considering my time limit. I care about protecting the kids of this community, and I'm here to speak on their behalf. I've been disappointed with some of the board who seem not to be looking for solutions to the book issue, but keep coming up with arguments, excuses, and roadblocks. I've heard constitutional arguments, artistic arguments, and arguments about community members' opinions, but I've seen little working towards a solution. I think that these books are a problem and we need a solution. Many studies have been conducted, concluding that introducing people to negative behaviors leads to an increase in these behaviors, even if content is presented as a warning. This seems to be especially true among minors. As an example, I reference a study conducted by the NIH in 2019 titled Association Between Release of Netflix's 13 Reasons Why and Suicide Rates in the United States. The study used advanced statistical analysis and forecasting models to determine that, and I quote, the release of the 13 Reasons Why was associated with a significant increase in monthly suicide rates among U.S. youth and aged 10 to 17 years. The NIH scientifically concluded that introducing kids to suicide statistically and significantly led to more suicide. So going back to the books, as we introduce our kids to sexual content, rape, suicide, etc., we're actively promoting an increase in these behaviors. If we use the MPAA movie rating system in classrooms, I think that we should absolutely be able to use a rating system to monitor books that the kids have access to. Please vote on the booklets and stop tabling the issue so we can investigate additional options in the future if necessary, but I think we need to get something moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you,
Can I
Russell.
ask a question? Did you want that in the record? Because we can put that in the record of the board meeting, since you got it printed out.
Oh, I can,
If you want, it doesn't have to be, but I'm just saying, if it's printed out, it can go into the record. Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
And next up is Renee.
And I'm Renee Tippin, and we are here yet again about the library book policy. We are disappointed in how many meetings it is taking to get this policy in place. Thinking back to last winter, when this was first brought to the school board, I remember sitting at the dinner table with my husband thinking, there's no way parents would want their kids reading these books. I was in shock, and I'm still in shock, how this policy, or lack thereof, has been handled. There are restrictions to minors for a reason. Their brains, specifically the prefrontal cortex, responsible for planning, decision-making, impulse control, and considering consequences, are not yet fully developed. For this reason, minors cannot do any of the following: smoke cigarettes, drink alcohol, get a tattoo, vote, and see rated R movies, just to name a few. You have an internet policy in place to protect the children from inappropriate content online. How is this any different? We want to see books containing sexually explicit content and violent content removed from the school libraries. I can't stay, I have kiddos, I need to get home and get to bed, but I will be watching online, and I'll be hoping and praying that there's a resolution tonight. Think about the kids, be bold in tonight's decision, and do what's right for the children in this district.
Thank you, Renee. Last person on tonight is
Did you want
Mr. Jake.
yours also?
I will, yeah.
Jake.
Good evening, school board. Here I am again. Cabinet, customers, superintendent, board chair. I'm here to speak about how impressed I am with APAC, and that's the American Indian Education Parental Action Committee, or whatever other letters I forgot. And in particular, Haley Dangle is our lead at the high school. Lisa Seacher does more of the younger kids. She's also great. But the trajectory is just amazing. We were just at a meeting at Etna, and Rob last week, and the superintendent last week, and noticed that last year's college fair for the Native students was attended by one person, and this year it was attended by 13 kids. So they're definitely making some headway there. I'd also like to mention that anyone is welcome to the meetings. They like all sorts of input, whether you're Native or just an ally. And then also in February 15th of 2025, our own St. Francis is hosting a multi-school powwow. And it's going to be huge. There's going to be tons of people there. It's going to be in the gymnasium on a Saturday. And it's going to be absolutely amazing display of culture and a good way to learn about people that may or may not be different than you. So I'd just like to say to Haley one more time, good job, keep up the great work, and hope to see you all at the powwow coming up in February. I'll remind you as well. Thank you.
next up, consent agenda. Pam, you see you want to pull 2 items. Which one again?
4.5 and 4.6.
4.5, 4.6 to be pulled, you're saying.
Pull to discuss, yeah.
For discussion.
Yeah.
Okay. So then for 4.1, 2, 3, and 4, is there a motion to accept?
So,
Thank you. Second?
second.
Thank you. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, all passes, thank you. Discussion, 4.5, extended trip for high school choir, go ahead.
Okay, so this is just gonna apply to both of them. The reason why I was running the last minute tonight was I had a parent reach out to me, and let me just go to my notes. And she made me aware that there is a biological boy who is spending time in the locker rooms because he is part of the girls' team. The girls on the team are afraid to say anything for the fear of repercussions, and they don't feel that it's fair and it's not safe. There's a safety concern of the parents. So those are her words, not mine. So there is a concern, and I know we talked about this, was it 2 meetings ago, maybe it was 3 meetings ago, about transparency, and I do believe, and this parent was one of those parents who did not know of the law, which is the Human Rights Act, which is in place, so we have to, again, I want to publicize it so everybody knows that we have to give access to all. It has to be equal access. So the recommendation for these situations, and the reason why I pulled these 2 is because one of them is an extended trip for the choir, and one is an extended trip for wrestling. And like I discussed in the last time we discussed this means biological males can be rooming with biological females without the knowledge of anybody in the room. These are overnights, and my request back then was we need to at least make parents aware that this is a potential, this could happen. So I would like something to be written on the permission slips that the parents have to sign in bold letters stating this, so they can make a decision as to whether or not they want to be a chaperone in their child's room or even allow their child to go on these trips. I know that the law says we can't talk about who and where and all those things, so I understand all that, but I wanted to, again, bring this to Carson, to your attention, because it is now a real thing that has been identified, and now we are all aware of it as a board, that there is this going on, and there is a biological male sharing a locker room with biological girls, and there's no adult present. So, the other solution that the parent was agreeing upon would be when we have this situation, because I know in our last discussion, Carson, you said that our staff handles these things very well and takes care of these situations. However, there is no adult in that locker room with that mixed audience or children. So my request is that anytime this is a case, that there be an adult in the locker room at the same time that these individuals are sharing that space. So 2 requests. Adult in the locker room when there's biological males and biological females together, and that we make aware to the parents on the permission slips for these overnights that their son or daughter could be rooming with the opposite sex.
Could I ask, has the parent expressed their concern to the principal?
I do not believe so, because it's such a sensitive thing. So here's the thing, like I said, the girls on their team are afraid, so they don't even want their parents to address it, because they are afraid of repercussions. So there's this underlying fear, and I don't know where that comes from, but they don't want to say anything because they're afraid that there might be repercussions, because they see the news, they see women's sports. I mean, we've got women's, is it a volleyball team now who's refusing to play against another team? So I mean, there's things going on, right? So they're afraid, and so this parent did not want me to bring up their name, their child's name. I said I won't even bring up the sport because I don't want it to point to, but there is a fear, and then she used the word fear, of repercussions by these girls, and there is a safety fear of the parents for their children's safety, because there has been some behavioral issues that have gone on in the locker room.
Yeah, I will say that if there were ever repercussions against someone who complains, we take that very seriously, and we would follow up to make sure that it would not impact any decisions, would not impact those kids, and would not happen again. So I've been in education for 30 years. Every year I've heard the same complaint about people not wanting to share concerns with site or district administrators because they're afraid of repercussions. I've never experienced that as a school administrator. It just doesn't happen. And I think it's an easy way for people to just complain to a friend or a neighbor or a trusted, person. But really, it's better if someone talks directly to the site administrator. In this case, it could be the principal or the activities director, depending on, what we're talking about. I'm not aware of that happening. And so I would encourage that individual to talk directly with the site administrator.
Okay, so here's my question. What does repercussions mean to you? Because repercussions are more than just telling administration about it. There could be repercussions on a one-to-one, peer-to-peer basis. And the other thing is to say that it's easy to complain or talk to a trusted individual. This is not an easy discussion that this individual had with me. So to say that, just for somebody to come out, I mean, you're used to conflict. I don't have a problem with conflict. That's rare. So, I think we need to be careful how we, it feels a little scapegoating when we say, well, it's easy to complain to somebody else and not go to administration.
Yeah.
It's a real concern. The girls are confirmed. They're like, no, Mom, don't say anything because I might get in trouble. So I don't know where that comes from, but the kids are afraid to say anything. So.
Well, I still encourage,
Yes.
someone with firsthand knowledge to talk to the site administrator, and then we can take it from there. That's what I can say.
Okay.
As far as following up on his concerns, because right now I don't know if it's a gym class, if it's a sport, if it's even true. I just don't know. We're running after all sorts of rumors that may not be true.
This individual said that there can be a side communication, so I can talk to you afterwards.
Okay, yeah.
Or I will talk to the individual and say, please reach out.
Yeah, either way would be fine.
I will do that communication to that individual. But again, in the meantime, transparency, I think, is very, very important. And if we don't make it transparent, these parents don't know this law. And they don't all watch this meeting because this meeting is not on their radar. They're busy doing other things. So I would like for us to take some action, come forward with a proposal at the next meeting, maybe of what you think you can do to better communicate and better make sure that these kids that are going on these extended trips, that the parents are well aware that they will not know for sure if there is, because the law states it cannot be talked about. But they need to be aware that it's a potential.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is making some sort of general statement that could be shared with every overnight trip participant or potential participant. That's what you're saying.
Correct.
So you're not saying just send it to a certain overnight trip because some.
No, yes, correct. Make it well known that when your students are going on an overnight trip, this potentially could be the case, that they are rooming with somebody that they're not aware they're rooming with.
Yeah, I can try to work on something like that.
All right, and then the adult in the locker room, we can address that as you have the facts.
Yeah, that one will be tougher.
Why?
Because of staffing. issues. And then also, you know, if it's coaches after hours, if it's a gym teacher during the school day. And then if we did have special arrangements, that somebody in the locker room for that particular period, then we're announcing to the world that there's somebody, you know, not following their gender.
Not necessarily, that's
So,
where I'm speaking to be proactive and not reactive to something that might happen.
yeah, I'm not saying no, but that's a tougher hill to climb.
You're okay with the two requests for right now?
Yes, I am. I just wanted to have the discussion because it was just freshly brought to me tonight. And I wanted to make sure that that was talked about and everybody was aware. And it is, we'll follow up with the reality of the locker room situation.
Yeah, in general, you know, kids who might want, you know, additional privacy because of their gender identity, will work with administration on finding a solution that's best for everyone. We've had really, you know, we've been fortunate with being able to work with people because I think there is that trust, and so we made some things work.
So one last comment, because now that I'm aware of this that has gone on, because before it was always, well, we don't know, and you can't tell us, but now I'm aware. Bathroom usage is also a concern then too, and so I know you and I talked when you first came on about the potential of building individual bathrooms. So I would like for the board for that to get on the agenda, and let's talk about that, and let's talk about what the cost would be to start going down that road, because I mean, grocery stores are doing it. They've got single bathrooms now instead of the large bathrooms. I mean, we may as well start.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's in the scope of this particular item.
It's not, but I thought I would bring that up and I would like it put on the agenda.
Yeah, just so you can stay in these two right now and move forward. We hear what you're saying.
Okay. Yep.
So on 4.5, 4.6, there are motion to accept. Pam accepts it first, Jill seconds it. Any discussion further? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Both pass. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
St. Francis High School Student Report, Mr. Jack, you're up next.
Good evening to you all. I would like to thank you all for having us here, both the entire school board, the superintendent, the district cabinet, and Chair Santa Claus.
Yes, sir.
For those of you who don't know me or who have forgotten me possibly, because it's been an entire year since I've been in a school board meeting, my name is Jack Humphrey. I'm one of the now 4 St. Francis High School Student Council school board representatives, along with Grace Sundstrud, Emma Sorensen, and Julian Kelcher. We will all be transitioning through these meetings and shifting so that everyone is able to come to these meetings and represent our entire student council. So today I hope to talk about these things that we have currently already done within student council, some of the upcoming events that we have, and then also a trimester 1 recap for the entirety of St. Francis as a whole. So on November 3rd and 4th, we brought up 18 members and our 2 advisors, Ms. Abraham and Ms. Norton, to Gull Lake, where we went to the Craigans Resort to be invited to and to participate in the Minnesota Association of Student Councils and Minnesota Association of Honor Societies Student Leader Summit Conference in order to develop our student council leadership skills and to learn how to fundraise more efficiently with other areas within our school district. Through this conference, we learned many valuable skills that we will translate both into our school district, our high school, and hopefully bring up to you guys at later meetings once we describe them and discuss them within our own student council on what we can take further actions to further enhance our community and our community climate. After that, we have also had a food drive going on for the past month, which ends tomorrow. That is chaired by Senior Ella Donner, and we will have more information on how much food we have grabbed and how much food we have gotten to donate to organizations at the next meeting as it resolves. Also, we have our upcoming community night on December 13th at the high school. There will be a basketball game going on during this night, and there will be many games for children. It is completely free of charge. However, the basketball game does have a fee. And otherwise, there are many events for kids to enjoy. There will be a choir concert going on as well, and many activities to bring the entire family down and come to St. Francis High School. Other than that, we have more committees that are being built together currently and that are being grown from the ground up right now that we will have more information for you at further school board meetings. Now I'd like to move on to the current recap of trimester 1 of St. Francis High School and the other schools within our districts. We saw this year that our girls soccer team made it to the state tournament where they lost to the 2nd seed Mahamidai, who ended up winning the overall state championship. So a win in our own books, I'd say. And then we also had 2 cross-country runners, Annie Rolfe and Ryder Mold, qualify for the state cross-country meet. And you don't have to pull my leg on this one, but I will talk about the St. Francis High School debate team. Our small and mighty 8-person team has had an impactful school year in 2 new brand new events after the loss of our coach this past year. And we have had many firsts and many great feats, and we still have 2 tournaments that are guaranteed left. And as we approach these tournaments, we hope for great results, hoping to qualify for both the state tournament on the 6th and 7th for congressional debate, and on the 13th and 14th of January for Lincoln Douglas debate. And then we also hope to qualify a senior, Rowan Anderson, in Lincoln Douglas to the national tournament on the 10th and 11th as she competes in the Northern Lights District Tournament. And we hope to qualify some of our other congressional debaters at their tournament on the 13th and 14th of December as they compete at Pequot Lakes. Otherwise, we also see that the winter sports and activities season are starting up. Boys and girls basketball, wrestling, and of course, speech. And otherwise, I believe that it will be otherwise, it has been a great trimester 1, and I've seen prosperous things within St. Francis that will continue to grow as the school year evolves. Do you have any questions for me?
Questions from Jeff? Ma'am?
Thank you for your thoroughness. My goodness.
Without
Talk really
notes.
fast. I love it. Is there, can public go to the debates?
Of course.
So it's open, is all of it open? And maybe I'm thinking back during COVID time, maybe there were some restrictions, but it's all open?
They are open. The Lincoln Douglas National Qualifier will be held online at St. Francis High School, so I'm assuming Rowan won't particularly want a bunch of people in her classroom as she debates via computer. And then I'm not sure if anyone wants to make the trip up to Pequot Lakes, but I can get you more information on that if you'd like. But otherwise, the section tournament and the JV Novice Tournament, JV Novice State Tournament will be on the 6th and 7th of December, where we will see our students hope to both qualify for the state tournament in varsity, myself and Skylar Algier, and then the rest of our novices close their regular season. And then otherwise, the state tournament will be the 17th and 18th of January, and that is open to the public at the University of Minnesota.
Forewarning, I went last year.
Yes.
I really enjoyed it, actually.
Yeah.
You did a fantastic job with your teammates in debate. There were some of the debates I did not understand a single word. Not even the word "the," because they are talking super fast. And of course, the judge and both teams have written documentation so they can follow the arguments and determine who wins or loses. But as somebody sitting there, please go. I want to let you know.
I would like to make a clarification point to the superintendent's argument. While that may be true for policy debate, which is what we have been participating in for the past 3 years, our former coach, Mr. Sherrier, has retired from coaching after 40 years. And so now we are in both Lincoln Douglas and congressional debate, which are speaking at about the same tempo that I am right now. Lincoln Douglas is a one-on-one format versus policy, which is 2-on-2. And congressional debate has chambers of 12 to 16 people who debate bills and legislation that will enhance the world and that actually impact constituents, rather than trying to outspread their opponents and make them not be able to hear their mumble jumble of drug prescription ads.
I don't know, I just feel
That
like
makes me feel better.
I just feel like there's a politician in the future here.
As you see, it's helping with my speaking skills. It's a great activity that can help anyone. Yes.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just one comment. In a recent meet, you finished second out of 44 teams.
Second out of 48 entries at the Farmington Invitational, and then this past weekend as well, I placed second at Robbinsdale Birds of Prey. We have also had senior Rowan Anderson place 4th at Champlin Park and 3rd at the St. Francis Debate Tournament Invitational. We've also had freshman Ava Refslin place 7th and 8th at both the St. Francis Tournament and the Champlin Park Tournament. And then also I placed 4th as well at the Champlin Park Tournament.
Very nice.
And so a small but mighty 8-person team.
I just want to, your dad is beaming. As he should be.
He talks a lot like his mom.
Right?
He always says, I have the brains of my mom and the beauty of him.
There you go, the best of both worlds. I'm impressed. You're just so articulate. And I'm just wondering how, no notes in front of you.
I know.
And you just spilled off everything, dates and people and times, and I'm like, I'm just, wow, you impressed me, and your dad has every right to be smiling and proud of you. And you not only make your dad proud, you make this district proud, so thank you.
Thank you. I've learned these skills through DECA with Ms. Schrog, through speech with Ms. Arnold, where I participated in an event called Extemporaneous Speaking, where you give a memorized speech, and then also congressional debate through Mr. Toole, who picked up and saved our team. And so I'm very thankful to all of those advisors and these teams for providing me and many other students with skills necessary.
I'm gonna say our teachers bring out the gifts that we naturally have, so you
We have
have
a
a
great
gift.
staff.
Whatever you do, continue down that path, because your gift is very apparent to me in this room, as it is with a lot of ones, so.
Thank you. I would encourage any and all of you to come and see these students in competitions.
Yep.
And I give you Mike and Jack, want to spend all night with us, or you can take off for your homework and practice your speech.
I believe my dad would like to stay for the night. However, I do have my computer, which has my homework and any study materials that I need. And since he's my ride, I'll do whatever he says.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is St. Francis Middle School Shark Tank presentation. We have Hector, Adriana, and Katie. Now, unfortunately, middle school kids, you just had to follow a high school kid.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you picked up a couple of pointers here when you did your presentation tonight. How that's all.
So I would like to say that when I started at St. Francis, Jack was probably one of my probably the first student I met. And I'm a little hurt because I would like to say that I was part of his development as a speaker, because he did our announcements every single day for the whole year. And he was like that in 8th grade, so.
I'd like to thank both you and Ms. Bazell.
No.
I'm hearing those announcements throughout the entire past 4 years as well.
Okay, chocolate, well, yeah. All right, so, good evening, everyone. We are here to have our amazing students share a presentation that they did with a project that Mr. Burrell, come up here, has really developed that is, in my humble opinion, amazing. He's going to tell you a little bit about the directions that he gives students, the guidelines, and then they are going to present. They're a little nervous, but I told them you're all really nice. And if you're really nice, they might even do a little jiggle for you, right? Are you going to do it? Yes, okay, all right.
So just a little introduction. I invited you guys to come to the Shark Tank Meet Sharks. Some of you were able to come. Thank you for opening up your schedules to be able to do that. Ideally, what our students are doing is 3D modeling something. They have to create something to solve a problem through 3D design and 3D production. The downtime of 3D printing takes some time, and it really stifles the amount of work that you can get done when you're trying to see if something fits. So we developed design teams. Really, I should thank the Teacher Academy before I go on to this, because they gave us the time, myself the time to help develop this and work with other peers to create this awesome project. And at any rate, students take the idea of coming up with 5 things they can fix or repair or make better or build something from, and then take and create a product to market, sell, just like the Shark Tank television show. So then they have to learn a little bit more about packaging and advertising and different ways to present their product. They have to divide their team of 3 or 2 up and divvy up their workload and share ideas and develop what is the best direction to move, and then really build the profile of what the product will be. They're gonna have to have somebody turn into the designer on this 3D software for the team. We're gonna have someone that's gonna create the packaging, and then somebody's gonna do the advertising and marketing. They're gonna actually print things out from Canva and create the actual package and discuss how it can be presented and shared into a market. And we have a little bit of a build out still on what Shark Tank element it actually is, but ideally they're trying to seek funding for their product, and they learn a little bit about financing and what the margin is, just a little bit introduction to the whole business. So it brings a real world element to their project, and they present that to somebody, a real audience. So I'm going to be looking forward to hopefully getting more business members in our community to come in and sit and take a day out of their schedule and watch some of these sharks in 8th grade or Shark Tank presentations in 8th grade. So without further ado.
Hello, we're going to introduce our product, the group belongs. The next one.
Oh, I think I have to do it, so just tell me when you want to slide.
I'm Katie.
I'm Pepper. And I'm Adriana. We use Canva to make our logo. Canva is an app where you can create anything and make your creativity come to life. Do your arms have marks from carrying all those shopping bags? Do you want to get all your groceries into the house in one trip? If so, this is the tool for you. Because octopus with arms so I can carry your groceries anytime. Grandmas! We can solve that problem for you. This is our history sketch, and we've been debating on which one to choose, and then we decided on peppers. With this program, OnShape, we were able to design our product. OnShape helps with measurements and displays our product in 3D. Cost. The part costs about $4.79 to print. We are selling it for $6. Our profit will be $1.21, and our margin is 25%. And that's like the math between our margin and investing revenue. We are selling for $100,000 for 10% of our company. Money will go down towards fulfillment, packaging, and delivery. We've made more than 1,000 sales in the past 5 months. Consumers will purchase the simple beachy themed packaging, and it definitely makes an amazing gift for family and friends. Who wants to invest in Gripple?
You guys pass your Gripple around?
Yeah.
So just to summarize, you came up with the idea, you came up with design options, you chose one, you put it into OnShape, and then you printed it on a school 3D printer. And of course, you did packaging, and you're getting a great presentation.
Now, the team that's here tonight is overall #1 team that was selected, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of teams come before the judges, and I know that you all were one of the top ones that was being looked at. Yeah.
I have a question for you. What would you do differently if you were going to make a similar product in the future? Is there anything you would change?
Maybe like the handle will make it bigger. Since like we all have different hand sizes too, so.
Yeah, you want to be able to have anyone just
Yeah.
hear it, yeah.
And then,
So were you given ideas to choose from, or did you come up with this idea on your own?
We originally came up with 5 ideas, and then we just like chose some of those that we made ourselves. And then we just, yeah, like.
So the 3 of you sat down and you came up with 5 ideas? Really? And this is what you came up with? Wow. That's pretty awesome. Yeah.
It's a prototype. It's not injection molded, so it's a prototype. It would go off into the finishing elements, and you would actually get an injection molded die made for that.
Oh, okay. And how long did it take to print that?
About a day. It took 7 hours.
7 hours for the 3D printing to actually, okay.
yeah.
So one of you had to go in and program this to print, or was there already something online that you could use?
We created it in OnShape, and then we took it into a program to print it.
Students aren't allowed to download anything. They have to create everything in the 3D modeling program themselves.
Okay.
So they designed that particular product and did their revolve on the feature, and then added all the different 3D elements of it, and then came up with their prototype. Did you have an initial prototype before that one?
No, because it's too big.
So they have to learn about size and failure and how you're going to build everything. So I had to keep wrangling people back to make sure that they didn't have something that would take longer than a day. They have to have them done in a 24-hour period to be able to get the next group to be able to print the next day continuously. So.
And just so you know, when they present, they come into a room and we have official
forms that we use, there's 3 of us, and then they have to set up the technology, they have to get everything going, and it's very formal. And so for middle schoolers to be able to do that is very impressive. And they did a good job.
And I heard the judges really grilled you hard during that session, right? That's what I heard.
I was on the other side, so if that happened, it was these guys, not me.
But they answered questions really well. And, we asked questions about the margin and, those kinds of things. And this group, as well as almost every other group, did really well. They knew their stuff, that's for sure.
I'd like to highlight 2 of the other skills that they're getting, collaboration, critical thinking, communication, meeting deadlines. I mean, there's so much they get from this project, and it's only in the 2nd year. So we really hope that we can connect it with math and science and language arts even more and pull it all together, so, yeah.
Mr. Burwell, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What, if you could do something to further enhance the program, what would it be?
New 3D printers. I know it sounds like cliche, but it's literally, we have four printers and they run 24 hours a day for 10 days. And we went through more filament than we have ever this time. We went through 10 1 kilogram spools. So, technically that's $350 of material, but we also did 150 student projects. So when you think about it that way, the cost is really effective, but with the proprietary units that we have, we had to buy specific filament. The newer ones will print twice as fast and at a higher resolution. So I'm always trying to, better the system for the students to get feedback on the product faster. If we could get a product printed more quickly to resemble what they're designing and start to see that spatial relationship into what they've created. Wait, that doesn't fit my hand, or how's that gonna fit somebody with a different size hand? Or ergonomics and aesthetics come into it, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Now, again, you stay here all night with us, or you can go home and do homework.
Dan has a question.
Oh, wait, they had a hand up, Pam?
I have a question. So how many teams did you have doing this year, this timing?
There's 5 classes with 13 in them, 14 potentially, so they kind of vary in that amount.
Okay. And then, my other question is can you bring this to market? Can you help? Literally, do you think there's a possibility to bring this to the St. Francis market or somewhere to help pay for the supplies that you need to up the program?
Like junior states manufacturing?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, I've heard we've done that before. So that's my question, it's a pretty cool, it's a great idea, you guys.
Mm-hmm.
How many times are we, carrying multiple bags in each hand versus, anyway, just a question.
So I'd like to first thank Mr. Riel. I don't know if you remember, but 3 years ago I was in the same program and made a little thing that kept CDs together that you didn't have cases for. So I know that there's a bunch of great innovations that are made through that class, but otherwise, these are great lifelong skills that are being learned within this class and this program. And I think that you all would both enjoy DECA and enjoy future areas within our school district that go around the same areas. There's lots of sales, marketing, promotion areas, and lots of different ways. That's a product demonstration that you did to a judge. That's one of our events. Next year.
My only question is, do we need a motion for the check? Nice work.
Our 3D printers serve 600 students a year.
Gotta put better proposals together. It's gotta be a right way.
Great project, great presentation. Thank you.
Very good.
Okay, next up is St. Francis Middle School report, Ms. Heidi.
So I have to go for Jack and then after that.
Yeah, be back.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
Thanks for coming in, man.
Sorry. Okay, well, before we get going, we have one of our assistant principals, Todd Ferguson here. Some of you maybe haven't met him, because I'm usually the one who comes, but he's one of our assistant principals, so he came tonight to watch the kids. So maybe you know. All right, well, I have the honor tonight to talk about something about the middle school, and I chose to visit about our priority intervention program that is new to us this year. We started it the second week after MAA, so it was on a Tuesday, and really our intent was to provide targeted support to improve academic achievement in math and language arts. Now, we did see growth in our MCA and our fast bridge data. Last year, we were pretty proud of it. We had a 10% growth in MCA reading, and I believe like a 4 to 5% in math. And then we also met our QComp site goal last year for the first time in many years. So we're going in the right direction, but we really wanted to drill down and see what else we could do to improve. We call it priority intervention because it is just that. It is focused in math and language arts. We run the intervention between 6 and 8 weeks, and I say between 6 to 8 weeks because, you know, there's some holidays in there on a Thursday or, different times when we miss a day or two, so it's approximately 6 to 8 weeks. It happens twice per week for 30 minutes, and it happens during our Saints time. Our Saints time is kind of like an advisory period that happens every day for our students, and 2 times per week we have the priority intervention. We selected students that, this is our first time running it, so we are learning a lot, but we looked at students that really needed additional support to meet grade level benchmarks. So we used mostly FastBridge, but we also looked at MCA, and then there's always that factor about teacher recommendation that you look at that too. So those are how we developed our groups. I'm going to give you some examples of that. So for 6th grade, one of our teams, 6th grade yellow, we have one of our math interventionists took the most at-risk kids in her area, and the other teacher took the some risk kids for her intervention. And they both have things that they're working on that is data driven. The program structure, so because it's during Saints time, we are able to have some smaller intervention groups. We try to keep those around about 15 students. I have to give a shout out to those teachers that are not language arts and math teachers because they then are taking some larger groups during that time. But it is with the intent that the smaller intervention groups allows us to really tailor to meet the student needs. The other students are in workrooms during that time, or we really are excited because we're looking at enrichment activities. And so we do have a couple different enrichment programs happening. We just want to grow those. And so, if you want to do something well, you become very focused on details of it and keep spreading out as you go. And so first we're working on using the data, developing interventions, identifying the appropriate students, and then we are going to work it out to also enrichment. What we're focusing on is data driven. You can see what the different grade levels are working on. Implementation. So we really started the discussions about this last school year. It is part of the middle school philosophy. So there's different aspects of a middle school that is designed to meet the needs of students that age 10 to 14. Grade level 6 to 8, 5 to 8, usually is what they are. And in intervention and enrichment is one step in that process, and it's a very important step. The other parts, some of the things like teaming, Saints time, advisory time, we have those in place, but this was the next step for us. It is very data driven. I have to give a big shout out to Stacy and Sam. They have really helped us with that. Sam has come in and done work with both my math and language arts group. And it's really a team effort. The language arts and math teachers are doing the interventions and really spending the time, but it would not work be as successful as it is right now without the grade level team supporting each other, taking additional kids, doing that academic support. Our PLCs, the content language arts and math teachers, have spent a lot of time together talking about the data, but then also using the an amazing experience in education amongst themselves to look at things that they need, and then really entire school community support, because I'm very adamant that we protect that time. And so there's been some rearranging of schedules and other things, and people have been absolutely supportive of that. So I want to give a shout out because it really is the whole middle school working together for this. The intervention strategies are evidenced and research-based. They're differentiated instruction to meet the needs of our learners. Talked a little bit about how we could have taken those 30-some students in 6th grade on that one team and mixed them all up, but we very specifically looked at what they needed and put them in groups. They're assessed frequently. An example I can give you of that is in one of my 6th grade math teams. They looked at what the students, interventions that the students needed, and then they pulled questions off IXL and made a pre and post test, so they're able to see how effective they are. We have interventions from FastBridge and then pre and post for reading also. Examples of interventions are guided partner reading and math and skill-based game practices. That's the other things, is really reaching kids in different ways than they're maybe being taught in the classroom. Maybe there's another way to reach them, and these small groups and the time has really helped do that. I talked a little bit about the frequent assessments. So the teacher's observations, I can't speak enough for that. You can have all the formal assessments in the world, and they do a great job, but there is that expertise in that education in the room that you just can't match. And it's really, they know that other things that are going on with the kids, and they check things, and so there's a lot of that. And then the data reviews. So this is our first run of it. I'm really excited. The other thing I would say with this is we have a lot of our teachers that are doing their individual goals and plans, their SPIPs, off of this piece. I don't know if I've attended a language arts or reading or math one that hasn't been focused on this intervention time. What we're really hoping is we're hoping that our students are going to have increased confidence. When you feel better about yourself, about how you're doing things, you tend to get better at it. The more free throws you shoot and make, the more confident you get. So when I look at one of the things all these sidebar conversations and check-ins we've done with teachers, Todd, Nick, and I, and others, is they will tell you that in these small groups of students that have similar needs, these students are talking more, they're asking more questions, they're participating, they're articulating their needs a lot more than they are, because they feel like this is a place of people with similar needs as themselves. Of course, we want to see academic growth. We want them to feel more that they are able to perform better in the classroom. They're prepared for next steps in education. Math builds, reading and math are used in everything. The presentation that the girls just did, there's all sorts of reading and math that was in that presentation. And so, for example, in science, a lot of the science is literacy-based, and so they have leveled their reading a lot for their students in their classes, so we know that it's going to impact their science too. More engaged learners, more engaged our learners are, the better they perform. And then, of course, increased test performance. And I want to say that that is important, but all this other stuff is more important to me. Test performance often can be a one-shot thing. One day somebody could be having a stomach ache and they did really great the day before and they do it, but really all these other things, in my opinion, especially the confidence, is important. And I was told I had about that long today, so there am I. Bye, Kirsten.
I forgot the time.
You were tired.
It was good.
Oh, I should have kept going. Okay.
So questions of the middle school principal, Ms. Pam.
Thank you for what you're doing. I would love to see some of the data. Maybe I can get to have Stacy or Sam to see some of that. But a couple questions. So you say you're grouping with the similar needs, right? So I mean that makes sense because they feel safer and they feel okay because they're all kind of in the same thing. Compare that versus maybe somewhat of a mixed group. What I'm thinking, of course, is if you see somebody performing higher, does that aspire them to higher, or is it?
So I'd say middle school is very much about peer interactions. And so if you, they are very impacted by that. They get very
sometimes can get very embarrassed by giving the wrong answer or may not speak because they don't want to struggle through and question. And so that is one of the reasons I think is because of that peer impact.
So you're finding that it's much more effective than to stay kind of within that group so they can grow together?
Sometimes, I think for small group interventions, but I think in larger class size, there's a lot of, like, you put a group of students together and you might have one student who's really good at reading, another one who's good at math, but maybe another one is good at the graphic arts. So I think, it's not all or nothing. I think it's a little bit in the middle.
And then what's kind of the average time where you'll see the improvement with all this interaction that you're doing?
So
is there such a thing as an average time, or is there, what are your expectations of seeing?
We would hope to see growth within that 6 to 8 weeks.
6 to 8 weeks, okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
And they are seeing some growth already. We've been doing it 4 weeks probably, 4 weeks, and they're seeing some growth in the students, so. Yeah.
Thank you.
Questions, Nate?
What role do the parents have in this program, and what and when do you provide updates to the parents?
Yeah, so the parent updates will come when we'll do January fast bridge again, and so that will be when we'll be able to do some updates at that time. And the roles of parents, I think, is anytime that we can support our students, that it's okay to struggle and not get something and keep pushing and trying to learn, that's really helpful, because some people won't put themselves out there. They think they have to do everything right the first time, and that's not really the way life works, right? We fail all the time, and we have to keep going and trying better. So I think just kind of having that growth mindset and pushing and supporting the students. There are things that parents can do at home, but they're tired. The kids are tired when they get home too, especially if they're engaged all day long. So.
But you give them those tools and kind of let them know this is what we're doing, so if they can do more of that?
They do have access to IXL and some other things that they can do, the students, yeah. I would say how they're informed is a variety of different ways, and I think that would be one way that we could probably improve them.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah,
good to see.
yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, good, okay.
Amy?
I think one thing I'd like to see across all of education is getting back to students and finding out what their gifts are.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do that. When I was in school, I was used to tell my kids who went through St. Francis High School, I'd get a note from the teacher, a phone call, their kid was talking all the time.
Yeah.
And I'd look at my kid and I'd say, you have a gift. You know how to talk, but now you need to learn when to use it.
Yeah.
And it's not when the teacher's talking. And so there's a way we can encourage students and their gifts. And I'm not pointing the finger at you, I'm saying it's us as a society. We're so busy looking at those test scores, and I'm with you, it depends on the day. But I'm also gonna say there's kids that just aren't good with tests, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They mind block, they don't. And when are we as a society gonna get back to looking at kids individually, find out what their gift is? For a lot of them, it's not gonna be a 4-year college. And getting them excited about what their gift is and what they're going to do in this life. I think that's where we're failing kids, and I don't believe it's you personally, because I don't wanna put you on the spot, but I believe it as a whole, that's where we're failing. And until we can get back to that, you have kids, they're afraid to fail. Well, first of all, kids shouldn't be afraid to fail. They should be afraid to say, you know what, I'm not very good at that, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Because you know what are you really good at? They all have a gift.
Yeah.
But we're not doing a good enough job to point out what it is with each of those students. So they're not afraid to fail. It's that I'm maybe not as good at this, but I'm
Yeah, or
better at
afraid to
this.
try too sometimes.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I would like to a couple of things I can think about that Amy is the exploratory programs that they take, like what Joe just talked about,
Mhm.
is a great example. We have students that are phenomenal in that area and maybe struggle in that. So the exploratory programs at a middle school level are super important. And there is a reason that kids go through all the areas because they don't know what they don't know. They may have to not have discovered their gift. The other thing is that we started our MCIS Career Exploration Program, a plan this year at the middle school where kids are learning more about their interests and their abilities and what might be an area that they should explore. Because you're right, there should be things. Another thing is project-based learning, which is a lot
as projects like they did. If you were a judge, you would have, some of the kids would say, I was the graphic designer, because they were super proud of it. There might be another student that was all about the technology and basically, get out of the way, I got this. So they do discover their skills. It's just getting them to articulate it and then explore. And then I think with the high schools doing it through career pathways is really going to help. I'm 100% on board with you that 4-year college isn't for everybody. People should find something that interests them, something that they love.
What I would love to see flip-flopped is you have the students go to Anoka Tech after they've started their plan at the high school. If that can be flip-flopped, because a lot of these kids go there in 8th grade and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe all the different choices I have to do after high school. I had no idea. I've always just heard 4-year college. And it's not only from educators, there's parents, there's grandmas, there's, it's us as a society. It's always 4-year.
Yeah.
Until we get away from that. And we start, again, finding out what a kid's gifts are. I mean, we've seen today perfectly, we have a student, and he excelled at his gift. And yet he may not be as great a football player. But we have a football player, and I don't know, maybe he is. I'm just making the point that all these kids have these beautiful gifts, and until we bring them out, we try and do that. That's when we're successful as a school district and as a society. And I think, again, we place too much emphasis on test scores, although I do not believe they should be in the 20%. We're all in agreement with that. But I think you're doing a good job of moving it in the right direction and finding out where these kids excel and how they're going to be successful when they graduate from high school, no matter what that journey looks like.
And Amy, I think basic foundational math and reading skills you need in anything.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's just so important that we really get that far.
Do they say anybody by the age of 3rd grade, if they're not reading, their probability of being successful drops tremendously. So, So thank you for all you do.
Okay, any further questions? Well, thank you, Ms. Christian, for coming in. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, next up will be Deb Parsons for student service report. Deb?
Good evening. I've got 4 minutes and 6 groups to get through. Buckle up. So the presentation that has been provided to you has 2 slides for each of the programs under me. One is the highlights and the next steps, and the next one's just the nitty-gritty of all the assignments that department has. Thought process was, for the past 3 years, we have been just reactive, and I said we need to take a break and review some of the stuff we're doing, what is working and what isn't, and really become more streamlined, efficient, and effective. So when I worked with the teams, I thought I'd start with the youngest kids first. So we've got Candy Danielson, who's a program supervisor under me, and she is early childhood. She does everything from birth to age 5, where they start kindergarten. And then she also runs the transition from preschool into kindergarten. So the first week and a half of kindergarten, the preschool special ed staff is actually on site at the elementaries to help with that transition. So I said, what are some things you want to highlight in your program? So it's bigger than most people think. It has 44 staff, but keep in mind that's gen ed and special ed, but that's 44 staff that invite families into our district for the very first time. One thing that we've noticed is the initial referrals and everything, failed screenings has skyrocketed since COVID. Already we've had 90 initial referrals from birth to 3, and then it divides, and then you get 3 to 5. That's huge. The staff is constantly doing assessments and going into the homes. So we have the initial referrals, then we have the screenings that are constant. I don't know if people realize, but the screenings go all year round. So they're constantly staying after and getting kids through. The goal is to do early intervention, catch them early, get the interventions in place. So the preschool and the whole early childhood, that's our welcome to families to our community. It's the face of the district right out of the gate. So to me, it's one of the most important things that we can do is make a welcoming atmosphere for these families. I'm not sure if you guys realize, but we also have a satellite site at the Tri-Valley, which is the old sandhill. We have people out there as well as a site at St. Francis Elementary. So it's spread across the entire district.
Can I ask a question?
No, thank you.
I love you, Deb. Where is the special ed room over at Tri-Valley? Or, I'm sorry, the preschool room. You said we have one room there at
One
Tri-Valley?
room over there. I
Where is
have
it?
not been out there to see physically where it's at. And we are in inclusion, so I don't know if it's a separate room or we go push in
Got
to
it,
the
that's fine.
classroom.
I was just wondering, because I see that it's like a L-shaped building.
Mm-hmm.
And we have two ends. I didn't know if they didn't want parents walking through there or if it wouldn't matter for preschool.
That's a great question. I don't know if parents come out through or not, but I know that we do a lot of inclusion, so we push into the classrooms way more than we pull out.
Awesome.
Yep. So then the second slide of each group, Candy does a great job at early childhood, but she also has all of these other areas that she oversees above and beyond just taking care of our birth to 5. So again, this is just more of the nitty gritty, just to show how wide her work base is. Adrienne Lewis is our elementary, so she covers all 3 of our elementaries. And, excuse me, we have had, again, a significant increase in the mental health needs and the behavioral needs. So I am so excited to share that we got our ASD center base at the elementary level up and running again this year. And it has expanded as of Wednesday, they're moving into a bigger space. We were able to finally hire the second teacher. So that program, we're able to pull some kids back from River a little bit or keep from sending to River. We get to keep them with us, which is our ultimate goal. And the nature of collaboration between special ed and gen ed is always something we're working on. And I would echo her words. We have great people working with some great kids out there. So she too has a laundry list of other things she does. For instance, she works with our team on third-party billing, and she is also our point person for CPI. She does some of the CPI training along with Katie and Steve. And because of that, we have a quarterly restrictive procedures. Anytime a student is, dysregulated to the extent that they're in fear of harm or self to others, they are restricted.
CPI stands for?
Crisis
Prevention Interventions. It's physical holds.
Yes.
Always the last resort. This is not something we enjoy doing. It's not something that's good for anybody other than safety and security. And for every single time one of those procedures is done, parents are contacted, the team meets and reviews what happened before, during, and after, what could have we done different, what we call the debrief, what could we have done different, and then all the debriefs, once a quarter, we meet and review them again. We make sure that multiple eyes get on there, and there's a lot of discussion on what can we do, because it's just not pleasant for anybody involved, but again, safety and security of students. Katie is our program supervisor for the secondary level, so she covers all of the middle school and high school and works with Steve Brown, he's our next program supervisor of students moving back and forth. One thing we kicked off this year that this is a project I've been working on for almost 20 years, is to get unified PE at the high school. And I just put a quick definition up there. Unified PE provides a unique opportunity for students with and without disabilities to come together in one setting. We have, it's the rave of the high school right now. Kids are clamoring to get into it on both sides. We have, so Katie was talking to me today and she got tears in her eyes. She said, we have this one student who they really struggle just making a connection with. She never smiles. She's just very, Ellie's word, gloomy. You get her in this setting and she's smiling and she's walking and she's high-fiving and she's just having the time of her life. This is one of the best things we put out there. So that I just am so excited for. The next steps that Katie and I are working on is to review to ensure effectiveness and efficiency of programs and staffing. As you know, staffing is very, very hard to get. So we want to make sure that the ones we have are used effectively and efficiently. Are we doing the best programming? Are our schedules the best they can be? So she and I are embarking in a year-long review of all secondary staffing. So it's going to take a while to get there, but I want to just make sure that we're using our funds and our people the best we can. She too has a laundry list of other things, other duties as assigned. So she, for instance, she again is a CPI trainer and on the quarterly committee. She also works with our work experience coordinators to get our students out into the communities, experiencing jobs. She oversees the school psychologists, which are part of the assessment team. So she and Adrian tag team and work together. And one other item that I didn't point out on the other ones, but they are also on PRTs, the peer review teams, as the admin. So they sit in all of those meetings as well. A lot of time spent in meetings, unfortunately, but hopefully in the end of the day, they pan out for growth in teachers. Steve Brown is new to us.
Question?
Yep.
Zen coordinator?
Zen coordinator, so, go back. Maybe. There we go. Zen coordinator, so we could not get enough educational assistants to get our kids into the buildings. That was problematic. So we went through contracted services, their name is Zen, to get more people in so the kids could come to school. So she is the contact person to get that contracted service employees into our building. Positions are still posted because our desire is to have our own staff. Until we can get there, we're using outside people right now. Yeah.
So, is that, and those positions are, that you're using with Zen?
Educational assistants.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is it similar to what we're doing with the custodians, I would say?
Similar, yeah. We have the option to, I can't think of the word, but buy them out. So if they like what they see, it's almost like a temp agency. They come in, they try it. We've gotten some fantastic people that way. Yeah. So it was an opportunity for us to get them their foot in the door and for us to sell ourselves. So that is an option that we've been using as well.
So with the pay, Zen, how do you figure out their pay structure? Because we have a contract.
Yeah, it's not through the contract at all. We contract through Zen and they have their own pay structure. They do everything.
Yeah, so my question is their pay more than ours? Less, the same?
It's almost the same. So we did a cost analysis between because we don't pay benefits or anything like that. We just pay for, it's very similar. It's $1 something different. So we were thinking it was way different and it wasn't.
So would it be about the same with the benefits?
Yeah, when you figure that in there, it's only $1 something different.
Yeah, okay.
And FYI, we are not doing that any longer with custodians. We stepped away from that contracted services.
Okay, but that's what, it was similar to.
Very
Yeah, and we did step away from Zen as well and made a huge push to try to get our own. It was only last resort when we had too many kids that we said we have to do home-based education, and I hate that.
Okay. Can I ask how many Zen EAs there are?
It's goes up and down depending if we can hire, we
Sure.
release, we hire, we release, so it goes up and down. Brandon, you probably have better numbers than I do most recently, but we had 6 at one point, so it's not like we've got 20, 30, it's single digits typically, yes.
So does then, excuse me, individuals, do they go through the same type of training and background check?
We set our criteria, yep, and we say before they can come to us, they have to have A, B, C, D, they have to be highly qualified, they have to be PCA, they have to, all those things.
And the background check?
Yep, they take care of that, so we don't have to pay for that either. All right, so Steve is our newest program supervisor. He came mid-year last year. He is the one who really took over. Again, this was a reactive, okay, you can't suspend kids, so get a program, raise that, go. He is now overseeing that in College Genesis, and the feedback he's been getting from parents, he wanted to highlight that it's positive, it's productive. They've got so much homework done while they were there. It seems to be a nice educational setting. It's short term. It's get them in, do what they need and get out, but it has had a positive impact, yeah.
So when you say positive impact, recurrence rate?
We track that, and we will have a Genesis update specifically because it has so much data to it. There are, we call them our frequent flyers, our return customers. It's very few, and if we're really putting
Another
into
term would be
this-
stick rate too.
Yeah.
Stick in the classroom.
If they, we're implementing, if they've returned 3 times and it's the same or similar, this isn't working, so what are we going to do different? So we thought we were going to have a few of those, and it's less than we thought. Last year, there was 3 to 5, depending on how you considered it the same or similar. And so then we're getting families in earlier, we're having conversations earlier, we're like, this didn't work. Why didn't it work? What are our next steps? So that's our next step to this whole journey, is to be proactive at the sites. Get Steve and our behavior interventionists out at the sites to be more proactive.
It would be nice to see data on
Oh, I've got a ton
that.
to
That
share
would
with
be,
you.
if you could, yeah, I would love to see
Yeah.
that.
In fact, we're planning on coming back here to do just a Genesis
Good, okay.
update. Yep.
Good.
And again, so the next steps to that are to be more proactive and to build that presence within the building. We're meeting, Steve and I meet frequently to get a vision out there and then start working with building admin on what that might look like. He too has a list of other things he does. One I'd like to point out is he is the program supervisor for anything special ed in the building next door. So Genesis is only part of it, and that's half special ed, half gen ed. He also is Restore, which is our setting 3-4 behavior program. Saints Academy and Saints Online. He oversees anything special ed there. He also does our shared time part-time. He's a CPI instructor as well, secondary special ed expulsion or in lieu of coordinator. And we're working on getting a website up and running. And he also manages our entire special education, call it our owner's manual, or how-to. So does a lot of everything there. Al and I have been in the district for so many years and known each other for over 25 years. So he is our only gen ed component to our team. He's 0.5 program supervisor of Crossroads Barnum, so the one off of 47. The rest of his day is spent doing anything that's on the student services plate that's not special ed related. So it could be anything from McKinney-Vento to nursing to basic needs, anything like that at all. So he's constantly going around doing things. Things he'd like to highlight is students have had a successful transition to their new educational platform, which is Ingenuity. We were using Inventum. We switched over to Ingenuity to try to get more of a interactive component to it. This Ingenuity has more videos, they can watch tutorials that way. It has more activities they can do. It does have an increase in rigor, we felt, for students, because online you can click, click, click and get your way through. This forces them to slow down a little bit and to really engage in the curriculum. He would like to share that our basic needs are the highest they've ever been, which we've already gotten over 50% of our allotted budget for this year alone in the first 3 months. So the needs are very, very high this year, which is very unfortunate. Our next steps for that program supervisor, to continue to evaluate the Ingenuity platform and to increase students earning course credits. They come to Barnum and they stay for anywhere. They may be in the crisis unit, so they may be there 24 hours. They may be there, the chemical health component is a 60 to 90 day program. So they may be there for that. They may be in what they call the Haven unit. They may be there for a year. So we don't know if we're going to get to reach out and try to make a connection for a day or for a year. So it's really to get in and get to know the kids and give them the best opportunity to get credit. Some of these kids, this is the only time they've been in school in 2 or 3 years. So we take that very seriously, that we are their gateway to an education. Al too has a list of things. One of the things that takes up a lot of his time is working with our health services department. We've had such a turnover there. And I said he's got a horseshoe in his back pocket, because every time we get a resignation, he gets a fantastic LSN or LPN or RN to apply. So he's pretty gifted. He is our 504 coordinator, which is a brand new world for him. So that was a learning curve. McKinney-Vento, which is our homeless population, he works so hard on that. I mean, it's a 24/7 job. He gets a call and he starts the process immediately. He works our care and treatment. So if we have students, we have a 25-mile perimeter in which we transport our students to care and treatment, and he coordinates all of that along with the foster care. We have group homes within our district that have popped up in the past couple of years that are just crazy. I mean, all of a sudden we get a call and there's a new kid and we have to get them into a school. So he coordinates all of that kind of stuff as well.
You oversees 504s in the whole district?
He's the coordinator for overseeing. So we have a team under us. We have our guidance counselors or whomever the building determines is their 504, which is typically the guidance counselors or school social worker. Yep. But he oversees it and he organizes the trainings. We meet with Ratwick once a year to do a full training, so.
Quick question. How many, or how many employees do you have total? And I would like, I want to understand what is that percentage of the whole district?
So it is a lot. It is a lot. I have under me currently 6 program supervisors, and under them we have, last I want to say 86 teachers, 125 EAs. Again, it fluctuates depending, but that's what we're.
And what's that as compared to the whole district? What percentage do you have?
That I don't know.
Our math person, Kirsten.
Brandon, how many employees are there?
There's 800 crewmen.
800?
Yeah.
Yeah, so about 25%.
We're busy. Stay busy, stay out of trouble, right?
Yeah.
And our last program supervisor, and this was another one, hey, we got a facility moving in, get it ready, set, go, and it took off. December 4th will be the 1-year anniversary from our first student arriving, and I only know this because that was my birthday, and what a gift. So we have Nexus East Bethel, and it's a beautiful campus, beautiful facility, and it houses, it's a full female unit at this time, they're looking at expanding, but they want to lock down things and make sure they get the programming in place first. One thing we really focus on, again, some of these students have not been in school in a very, very long time. To get them to even cross into what is the school is difficult. To get them to participate is difficult. And we had 100% completion rate for the MCs and SFAS bridge testing this fall. That is unheard of in a setting like this. And I attribute 99% of that to Bridget Brown. She makes a connection with each and every one of these students. And I just touched base with Mike at the start of the meeting. The students wrote letters to the vets, just like we had that going on around the rest of, we tried to have them participate in things. And some of those letters are just heartwarming, coming from students who live in utter chaos, and they can take a moment and show gratitude is pretty humbling. And her words were, they show the empathy and appreciation on a lot of students that we work with. So it's pretty amazing. Our dream would be to put a garden, a student garden, just out in the courtyard. So keep in mind, it's a lockdown facility. So when we say courtyard, it is a fenced in area that they can go out into. So if we can beautify that and give them some ownership in the landscaping is our goal. And the next one, we have 5 contracted virtual speech clinicians in our district. We'd like to get that down to 0 and get to all in person. We just feel that's the most effective way to provide the speech. We are having success with the virtual, don't get me wrong, but there's something to be said that when you go into a room and there's another live human there waiting to welcome you, it just is different. So that is our goal, is to keep plugging away and getting in-person speech. And again, she has some things going on behind the scenes. One thing I'd like to highlight is our blind, visually impaired, our BVI. So in the past, we've always contracted this out. Our numbers were getting to that point where it was almost this break even, like we're contracting out at this level of cost. Could we hire our own? Couple that with, to get a consultant out here or a provider out here was almost impossible. Some of our students were going in, a year with minimal contact, just barely meeting the IEP minutes. And we were able, one of our internals went back to school, and she's finishing up right now to become BVI to support our district. So it's amazing. That person also, so she's 0.5 BVI, the other 0.5 is she is our homebound liaison. So she is the person that covers our SPED minutes homebound. That number has doubled in the past year, so we're looking at needing to figure out some more services there. But this person, and I'll give a shout out to Angie White, she does phenomenal being our BVI, and she's dove in and really embraced the position and made it quite spectacular. You may have heard a little bit about our EA Welcome Back. We had a 3-day training, and we started with early double-digit highly qualified, and by the end of it, we were mid-90s that were highly qualified after 3 days training and providing some assessments. So by the time we handed it over, this was a huge project that Bridget and I worked on all summer to kick it off, and by the time we handed it over to HR, we were 95 to 96% were highly qualified. So I'm very proud of being able to get that far that fast. So I think we started at 12%. So. All right.
Okay, questions?
No,
Questions?
just a comment. I've seen a lot of people in your position, and I want to say you're doing a really spectacular job. I also like seeing your passion for these. I worked with you back at the middle school. I was one of your EAs.
I remember very well.
And before I got on the board, And,
So you're coming
so I
down
saw
to
your,
the-
yeah, I know. Yes, she's coming back and mention how many years ago it was. But I will say, for people who don't realize that new building over there in East Bethel and the students that, are placed in that facility, because I think, am I correct in saying that a lot of them are placed, they're state wards of the state, some of them, or a portion of
It
them?
is, it was.
Okay.
And now the pendulum seems to be swinging and we got a pretty good mix. right now.
However it is, these are children that you, have had a difficult upbringing. And so when she talks about how they wrote thanks to someone else, when sometimes it's hard to be thankful for, because it's difficult, because for them, they've had really tough lives. I can see you just really, I see you pick out the little things that other people may bypass to think, well, it should be that way. This is, all kids should take the test, right? But to have some of these that took it with these students that they're dealing with. So you're doing a great job, keep it up. And it's a difficult job, it continues to grow, as we're aware of. And so keep up the good work and be involved, it's great, Deb.
Thank you.
Graham?
Thank you for your leadership and for your passion. Yeah, it really shows. How many, visually impaired do we have that were I mean, it's great that we've got somebody that stepped up, so it's, because I remember you talking about this before, that it was.
Yep. So we've had a big influx in the birth to 3 age because the survival rate has increased. And typically if they're born premature, there's a lot of vision things that could happen. So we went from, high single digits, low teens to we're pushing mid-20s right now.
Okay, that's a lot.
It's a lot.
And so we have one individual that's, or how many?
It's 0.5.
It's a 0.5. Wow, okay, and so that's integrating with the parents and teaching them.
So birth to 3 is in the home with the parents. 3, once they start coming in, and some don't come in, they're too fragile, they don't come in. But at 3, they can come in, and then she works with them at the school. And it's a lot of what we call indirect. So she works with the teachers on how to work with the student, because when she goes, somebody's still gonna work with the student. So there's a lot of the indirect,
I got 3 questions for you. I'll start at the early learners and work up.
Okay, perfect.
ECFC talked about the screening and that we are, we're doing record numbers of that. Are we missing any opportunities with the screening? And can we do anything more? Do you need anything more so we can get after more screening? Do we have to pay our schedule is full, go to this organization for screening? Are we missing anything that you think?
So far, we have not needed to send. We've been able to get in, and one of the things they're doing is going out into looking at okay, there's a daycare right over there, instead of trying to get the kids in, we can go out and get them done like that. So that's been more efficient. So it's looking at outside the box ideas on how to do it. Again, it's the extra hours people are putting in during the summer and after school. It's like conference nights, but full of screenings.
Elementary, you talked about we need more center-based programming, so this is, I think, the 3rd time that I've heard that from you, because our historical numbers are going up. Do you have options or a plan, and you don't have to answer that tonight, that the board might be presented with at some point of how we can get after it? Because I know we're very limited with space and staffing for the center-based, so are you working on a plan to?
I sure am.
Okay.
And you will
Can we
hear
need to
soon.
see it?
Yep.
And then the last one is the middle school. You talked about unified PE at the high school. I know we have it at least one of the elementaries. I don't know if it's at all 3. Do we have it at the middle school?
Not yet.
Okay. And is there a plan to work that in so we continue that process throughout? Because I know some students that participate in the unified PE in elementary school, and that is the highlight of their day. It brings so much joy to not only the student that's in need, but also the student that's providing the help. It's just such a great program. It'd be awesome to see it across the whole district.
It would be. It's my desire. We're wanting to see how the high school goes and learn from that, what went well, what could we do different, and then see where else we can implement it, yeah.
Do you know, do all 3 elementary schools do it, or is it?
It's just the one because of the language program being located at that school.
Oh, yeah, makes sense. Okay.
T15, has there been any progress on looking for alternate site, or is there still a need for?
So 0 progress, a lot of effort being put into it, and I feel like we're just spinning our wheels. This year, we borrowed another room from Saints Academy to spread out. That's working for now. We are relooking at our numbers. We had 4 super high need students that ended up at Farm River that really took us on a left turn. So we want to analyze that, and we want to look at how well that extra space at Academy is working. But I also know his numbers are now on the increase too, and he's going to need that space back, so we're right back in the same boat.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff, for kind of presentation, and then you showed a lot of people one part of the complexity to run a school district that people really don't understand, but they see something else that you put on the board this evening. So thank you for doing that.
Well, and I really want to accentuate on the blind, visually impaired. Wow, that's a thank you to Bridget. That was one of the reasons that we chose to use 916, or because of these high-cost students and not being able to provide the services here for them. And so I think it's great that we're just not supposed to tell anybody. We're just telling people that's gonna work. So that would be but I think it's great. Thank you very much. It's a huge deal for the district, so. But it's our little secret.
Yeah.
The last comment I made is that we're short 5 speech pathologists.
Yes.
That is not just St. Francis.
No,
That
this is a
across the
statewide.
state, it's across the nation. They are all short.
They're short, and speech services is the only service that MDE has given their stamp on. It can be virtual. Everything else is like, no, it has to be in person, and for whatever reason, they said speech could be virtual, so a lot of the speech clinicians and pathologists are like, I'll work from home. So it didn't help us at all. Not only are we short, but now we can't even get them in person, so.
All right, well, thank you very much for coming in. Thank you. Next up here is 5.5. As you see, there's a lot of revisions there on the policies all the way through. Just take a look at it, first reading. Next meeting, you'll see the approval of those policies come up before you. When you do go through the policies, if you do have questions, issues, or concerns, if you would, please call in to Brandon or the superintendent and try and get a clarification on your questions on one of those policies. It helps save time in our next meeting. All right, moving on. Admin report, superintendent.
First, the unwritten part that I want to share. At the next meeting at 5:30, we'd like to recognize Amy, Pam, and Mike for their service on the school board. So please, if you can be here at 5:30, that's not true just for the school board members, but community members, staff members. It's really important to recognize great work. And so we're hoping to be here at 5:30. We will have refreshments. Hopefully you're able to join us. Getting back to my report, Dax Larson, our communications person, has started a digital newsletter that is sent out monthly. Again, for community members and staff members and students, please consider signing up for that by going to the website, look for Saints News, and then there's a place to sign up for that digital newsletter. We want people to be informed of what's happening in the schools, the good, the bad. We want to be transparent. So please sign up for that, including our board members who are leaving us. We'd love to have all of us be part of it. And then if you can encourage your friends and neighbors to sign up as well, I'd be appreciated. Technology department restructuring is making progress. We are restructuring a couple of positions, and we'll be making reductions elsewhere in the technology department to pay for those changes. We think the changes are really smart because it's going to enable us to specialize in a couple of areas, change who supervises who. And so we're excited about that change. Some of the reductions will be in consulting work. And I know CISO has come up with several other project changes that will save us money as well. So I'm very confident that we'll be able to save $40,000 per year, but I think it's going to be higher than that.
Can we get a little more detail on that? Because I had a concern with spending 40,000 more and put it in manager positions. I know we're gonna vote on later on that being within the contract. So can you give us more detail on that? To better understand what are we gonna gain from it and what are these changes? And this is sort of brief.
It is brief, you know, 40,000 is a little high because we are actually taking two positions and combining into one, the safety and
So it is gonna just be
security.
one.
Well, there'll be two positions, but one of those positions is actually taking two positions and putting it into one person.
Okay.
It'd be the safety and security person, would be doing a lot of the database work as well. And so there's some automatic savings just based on that one change, because we have a consultant doing a lot of the database work. So his services will come down. We also won't be spending as much from the safety and security budget to do that as well. So, you know, I put down $40,000, you know, just sort of as kind of a higher estimate, but we have some automatic savings as we adjust those. We also have technology director hired through CISO, and so we can make changes as far as how much time that person would spend in the district, so we'll be able to save money from that. That'll be, you know, depending on how many days we land on, you know, we could save $25,000 for each, you know, one day a week, you know, for the whole year.
So is that position, that CISO position, that was in place of Andy, right? Andy Cherry?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. And then we also are contracting out for a lead technician through CISO. And if we can hire a replacement, then that would enable us to cut back on that as well. So, you know, those are some of the things, but then CISO is also looking at savings as far as how we provide internet service to the district. Instead of providing an internet access point for each building, you know, we're looking at a different setup. And so that could be, you know, some significant savings. And the list goes on from there, but you know, that's more than 40,000 right there.
So we're replacing two individuals. So are we doing this, is it attrition based then? Are we letting anybody go?
We're gonna post things internally first. And so if there are two internal people who are qualified and interested, then they would have the chance.
Okay.
Then we're confident we'll be able to find two people.
Okay.
Further, though, we are anticipating a retirement in that department, but that's not factored into this at all.
Okay.
The next part is towing cars, student cars at the high school. Hopefully we don't have to do this. Almost every student at the high school bought their parking pass. It's been a really good year for that. We have a small handful of kids who have not. And the parents have been good to work with, but for some reason the money doesn't go from the parents to the school. So, you know, we like, and again, we don't want to do this, you know, but at the same time, it's a rule, it's an expectation. Everybody else is doing it. And so if there's a written notice sent to parents, you know, saying that the car could be towed, you know, if we do that first, if we want a fair warning, then we will consider towing at the high school. Just want to let you know. And we know you'd be supportive of it. It's in the student handbook. We want to give a written notice that people are paying. It's the fair thing to do. Certainly if there was some sort of financial struggle, you know, we would consider that, you know, maybe, you know, there could be some donations someplace. But I think we need to follow through on this. So just thought I'd let you know. Curriculum opt-out procedures. I was hoping to have a little more time maybe to spend on this tonight, but I did include the first draft of curriculum opt-out procedures. And just, so I attached that, if you could take time, maybe over the next couple of weeks to review it, ask me questions, make suggestions, challenge me, whatever it takes. I want a good, robust process. It's really an interpretation of state law, because parents can opt their kids out of curriculum. And the only catch is that it depends, there's some different procedures depending on what standards we're talking about. So, for example, opting out of instructional materials related to state required standards. For example, for some reason, if somebody doesn't like teaching fractions to their kids, at least I'm making this up, they don't like the math book that's being used, they could opt their children out of that particular math book, but then we would still need to provide a different math book in order to teach those standards, because they're state required standards, we have to do it. And I give some examples there. Most of the concerns will likely come from the state required social studies standards that are being incorporated in the future. And so those are required standards, but we can, provide alternative learning opportunities provided either by the teacher or by parents, depending on the circumstances. By the way, I'm still not over my cold, so I apologize for this. It's driving me nuts. There's also opting out of instructional materials not related to state required standards. And that there's more flexibility. I give two examples. One would be, well, first of all, there is no requirement that LGBTQ plus issues are included in the district's curriculum. The state does not require that. According to our attorney, I've looked through the standards myself, but in a general way, there is no requirement. So if there's some instructional materials that parents find objectionable, they can opt out with alternative instruction by the district. That can happen. So if there's a language arts class with a book on LGBTQ plus content, the parent could opt out. We would come up with an alternative book assignment. The logical thing would be to find a different book that doesn't have that content, and then go from there. Another example would be a health class, including information on sexual orientation and sexual identity. A parent can also opt out. One possible alternative would be to excuse a student from being in class and providing a lesson without that content. So those are two examples.
Has there ever been any discussion as to opting in?
No, there hasn't. The law talks about opting kids out.
I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious as to parents that all of a sudden afterwards say, well, I had no idea. Where if they were sent something, where if we're more transparent and saying, this is what we're going to be talking about this day, I would like to see parents opt in rather than opt out.
Yeah, the only thing is that those aren't the only examples there could be. There might be parents who object to other curriculum topics. And so there's no way we can anticipate every possible objectionable thing that parents would have. We can't set up a system where people have to opt into every piece of learning, like fractions or LGBTQ plus issues or those kinds of things.
And I agree with you with the fractions, but I think that's not comparing apples to apples with regards to curriculum that parents can and are concerned about being spoken with their children. And I think we all in this room know what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about fractions or arithmetic, or it's sensitive topics that are being pushed more and more into classrooms that weren't pushed when I was in school, that are being pushed now. So, and parents,
to your point though, because I anticipate those kinds of questions. For example, how can a parent opt out of something if they don't know what's being taught,
Correct.
essentially. And so there are lots of layers to this that we have to do further investigation.
And I would appreciate, and I'm not saying what can be done, I'm saying we need to be thoughtful and mindful of our parents and not say oops afterwards. That's not fair to parents, yet I understand that we don't want parents to be having to opt into every single thing. That's not what I'm asking for, and I think we can all understand the difference of what I'm asking for.
The videos would be an example.
One example would be sex education, for example. And so if the school or teacher anticipates a potential topic, to at least let people know that that's coming up. There's also the goal is to come up with a syllabus for each class in the school district that would list the resources being used, as well as grading expectations, what happens if you're absent from school, so the resources and the standards being assessed. So, a lot of schools do it. I don't know if other schools require it of each teacher, but it's very common. And I would anticipate if this is going to be an emphasis that we'll need to do that as well. And so that will take several months, to come up with that kind of plan that we can implement next year. So that, parents could have access to the syllabus, they'd see the resources, they know what standards are being assessed, and then they can make decisions based on that. That's kind of thinking, kind of to your point, it's not an opt-in, but at least we're giving
parents
a better notice, yeah. So you can see expectations of teachers that we're hoping to implement and some other parts. The stuff in red really didn't come directly from the attorney or even indirect reference or so things that I kind of came up with. And so there has to be a lot of vetting as we go through this process. And one step is to hear feedback from all of you, community members, or whoever. I'm sure we'll hear from staff members as well. And hopefully we can take that and come up with a really solid procedure. And then I envision that we would include, a summary statement with a reference, in the student handbook, so that we can get the message out. So one thing that, as far as, we are obligated to provide an ethnic studies course, I think started in 26.7. And, but our understanding now is that it's an elective. So kids do not have to take the class, and so that would be essentially the opt-out. And so we know that there'll be some potentially controversial topics discussed in those classes because that's what the state law is requiring. But we'll make it clear that it's an elective, kids don't have to take it, and so then they can choose something else if they want. So anyway, I just wanted to emphasize that as far as the opt-out.
As far as the ethnic studies, I understand that there's a lot of different options there, as far as what that can include. How is that gonna be determined? Is that gonna be through the
Yes,
current
Stacy
committee?
will lead that effort along with Mr. Austin in terms of how that ethnic studies class is set up, what's being taught, how it's going to be taught, who's going to be teaching it.
So what input is there gonna be from the community or from the board for that ethnic study?
My guess is that, we'll do some work internally and then go through our typical curriculum review process, which would include the ACT committee.
So the ACT committee could actually propose some things.
Yeah, we'll get
Provide
feedback
feedback.
all along, yeah.
Provide feedback, but not the initial, so you would present something.
Well, we have to come up with a plan first, so.
Yeah.
We're kind of investigating what are some options other districts are doing to start.
Yeah, thankfully we have until 26, 27 school year, so we have some time. But it's kind of an urgent thing still, because to make that timeline, we need to have it in the course of studies by January of 26. So we have about a year to make that work. You know, that includes coming up with a plan, getting feedback from multiple stakeholder groups, you know, working with the school board, the ACT committee. So I don't want to give the impression that, oh, we have all the time in the world to make this happen. It has to be urgent.
I won't be here with just a recommendation. I've heard in the past when you brought forth curriculum that we're the end stage of the game. And I've heard, well, if we don't do this, what do we do? I know Rob had a concern with the curriculum last spring and wasn't thrilled about passing it, but it was like, whoa, I guess we gotta do something. I would encourage you to include the board sooner than later. To not be, well, this is what we're doing, because that's a train wreck waiting to happen. So I would strongly encourage that whatever is going to end up in that classroom, that it starts here. Otherwise, yeah, it's gonna be a train wreck, yeah. That's my recommendation.
We can certainly have multiple touch points.
Yep, or maybe a work session or two on, because I understand it's from the state, but what districts are going to do could look completely different depending on what district you live in and what the school boards look like. That's the role that is placed here, so, on approval of curriculum, so.
The next area is just the discipline data. And so still through October, it will be updated, you know, once a month, but you may see some repeats from time to time. So this is the same data that you had at the last meeting. Status of challenged library materials is next. We do have an appeal about the Meanie Girl and the Dying Girl book that's in the media center, and so that'll be coming to the school board. And so it would be helpful to know when you want that review to take place.
As soon as possible.
Jill?
I think that should be in 2025, after the new board takes effect. Also, does the district have 7 copies of the book, the board members to read? And can we get all of the documentation from the committee members meeting? Any of their notes, any feedback from them?
We do not currently have the books available. I know that the members of the review committee got their own books. You know, certainly we could buy books, you know, for every board member. Or we can have the board members find their own copy for the library or the store or something like that. So that's my answer to that. You know, we don't have a plan right now. Stacy?
Libby is the library system where you could read an ebook if you're okay with ebooks. You might be able to check it out that way.
That's a good suggestion.
Amy?
I would caution the board of buying books every time for board members and providing them, because that can get costly. I think board members, if they're going to review a book, and there are many ways to review a book in this day and age, whether, you know, so.
Yeah.
And I would say, it's been a long time. I'm not sure what the review process is gonna look like in the future, but it seems like it's moving really slow. It's really slow for our community members. So I don't know why it wouldn't be as soon as it goes to the committee and they say it's okay, then it comes to the board. I mean, to be determined, it should be as soon as possible. And if it's at the next meeting, then it's at the next meeting.
Gives us 2 weeks to review.
Yeah, it gives us 2, this is how it's gonna be in the future. I mean, books are gonna be denied, and then it's gonna be sent to the school board, and are we gonna push it out a month or 2 again? I mean, no, if the board's gonna review, then okay, then it's at the next school board meeting, and that's.
And again, it doesn't matter to me when it
Yeah,
is. If it's
that's
next
my
month or
strong,
later
because
or something.
parents have been waiting, and they shouldn't have to wait months after it's been gone through the committee, and now we gotta wait a couple months for the board to review it, and there's some every board member will find their way to evaluate whether or not they believe it should be in our library, and that'll be up to the board to decide who's ever sitting here.
If I could jump in and answer Jill's second question. As far as documentation, the answer is yes, we can provide the documentation. Some information will be redacted, because I don't think it matters who is putting in the request, to challenge a book, or their address or anything like that. But we'll certainly give the letters that were, written to and from, so we can provide that information.
Rob?
Yeah, I guess for me, it depends on when it comes to the board or when the board finds out about the book. So if we don't find out about it until the board packet comes out, it's not enough time to review.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the book that's up for review first would be Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl. So we know the book. I don't know if I can get all the documentation tomorrow before teachers leave for Thanksgiving break, but certainly the book is known.
Well, and I'll just put it out there that I would hope that the new board chair, because you didn't run again, so I'm not. But the new board chair, the superintendent would look and have some common sense and say, you know what, there's not time to review this. It's whatever, Christmas vacation or whatever, but to really put it on as soon as possible, not just, but there would be a reason why if it was gonna be a month that the board chair and the superintendent would say, well, the school board weren't gonna get it until the Thursday before the board meeting, and that's not enough time, so this is why we're going to move it, and have that be, standard, not deviate from that. I think that it's fair and it looks fair to the public, and I think that works.
So is it advisable, like if a book is announced at one meeting, is that enough time for board members to read the book, review the documentation for the very next meeting?
Depends on your resources that you use to read it. I read through those 9 books in I think a 3-day weekend of those 9 books. I fast read right through them and found how bad they were. It didn't take very long to figure out that I didn't want them. So I speed reading, I don't know.
We also like to caution the board, down in South Carolina, they had 95 books that came off the shelf. The committee met, and those 95 books, 5 were pulled, 90 went back on the shelf. So you could imagine those 90 books. They didn't talk about the review down there, but what if you had 90 books that were approved? That's 90 books coming to your board in the future. Think about the complexity and the time frame to do something like that. We have over 14,000 books in the middle school right now. So think about the number. This thing could grow real ugly for you real fast. Jill's next. Jill.
So I think committing to a time frame without the board having a discussion on the book that they need to review is a very dangerous precedent, especially when you don't know what the board members' lives are outside of this board meeting. Some of us have a full-time job. Some of us have children to take care of. Some of us have a lot of other competing priorities and can't sit down and read 3 books in a weekend. I'm lucky if I can read a book in a month. So, I think it has to be a discussion of the board at the table that is going to be reviewing the books to make a determination on what works for that board. And if somebody's on vacation for a week, you're going to say, oh, by the way, during your vacation, you need to read a 300-page book, 500-page book. I think that's unrealistic.
Pam?
Nate, sorry. I'm supportive of what Amy said. I trust the superintendent and the board chair to make sure the board has all of the documentation. Our policy says the committee will have a written report. Once the board has all of that, and determine a good time frame. So, I don't want to set something right now either. I trust you two or whoever's in that position to give us a time frame that's going to work for the entire board.
It just needs to be timely because these books have been brought up by our community. Same group that you see sitting here. They've been brought up, and it's been over a year, and we got through 1 book so far. So it's just, our community is telling us, look, it's been too long, so we need to So we just do due diligence to it, and I think it'll make sense once we're heading down that road.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think
We're getting there.
we have the committee. Just a reminder, we didn't have a media specialist until August 26th.
Right.
So, you know, we wouldn't have been able to implement that policy because we didn't have someone unless we hired it out, which didn't make sense. So, I mean, that's a big reason for, you know, the delay. But now I think we have things going. And, you know, one thing, there haven't been an inordinate number of requests. You know, I think there's one more coming, you know, so at least it seems reasonable, you know, that people have, you know, also at least explain why they don't like the book. You know, so I think that's a positive thing. And at the review committee, when the one book was reviewed, I thought the discussion was really good. You know, so most of the members, if not all of them, had read the book. And, you know, there was a good discussion. So, I mean, there's some positive things coming from this, but we do want to get in the routine. I just wish there was a second meeting in December. You know, because, and I'm not suggesting it. I'm not suggesting special meetings. But, you know, I personally, I think a month, you know, is a lot more reasonable than 2 weeks. You know, but we're not in that situation. And of course, if we wait until January, then all of a sudden we have a new board, and then, you know, we have to figure out the policy again, and then all of a sudden there's another delay. So I get that.
That's it?
That's all I have.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Mike.
Question, yes, Rob?
Just not on that same subject, just something different. So, the proposed property tax statements came out this past week.
Yeah.
Just wondering, I mean, we've discussed it, but wondering if you can give a reason why we're down 7-point-something% and everybody else is up at least 2% in most cities and counties, or the county is up double digits.
Yeah, thank you for asking. He had mentioned that he'd be asking that question earlier, and I forgot to verbally say it. So the DD will have the full comprehensive report in 2 weeks, because we'll be presenting the audit as well as the levy, we'll have the truth and taxation hearing. So she'll give a lot more detailed information. But I can tell you, I think the refunding of the bond, you know, a year or two ago had an impact on the amount of debt that we hold. You know, so that was a good decision the board made that will save taxpayers dollars without taking money away from anyone. So that was one really good thing. And we do that all the time. We're looking at possible refunding to save taxpayers dollars. That's one thing. There's also huge fluctuations in adjustments. And, you know, we saw it a year ago with the levy, and we saw it again this year. I think it's like $650,000 worth of adjustments or thereabouts, you know, went down. And so that's a big contributing factor as well. But again, Dee will have the detailed information. By the way, the adjustments are caused by differences between actual enrollment and projected enrollment. And so she can explain more of that. So thanks for the question.
And are you having a question with regards to Anoka County and their individual cities?
No, I just brought that.
So I was gonna say, because if those are going up, you need to contact them.
Right.
Right. We have no control over that.
No, it's just the ones that can raise your taxes without going to their voters.
Yeah.
is way higher than
Yeah,
school districts. But
we're the only entity that can.
Okay, we'll move on then. Next up will be action items. First one for action items will be the policy here. We're going to have our HR director, Mr. Nelson, come up, talk about it, and then after he talks about it, we always said Mr. Nelson take a chair afterwards. We're not standing here all evening with that. So let's go over what you found out from the attorney, and we'll go forward with it, folks.
Yeah, good evening. So after the last school board meeting, under the direction of the school board, we made a revised version of policy 606.5, which is version 4. A copy of that is in your school board packet. And have the school district attorney review that. And in your board packet is the question that was asked of the attorney, which was to review version 4. And then if the legal opinion was to omit the new part 5, section 7 of that policy, which would have been highlighted in yellow, then is there any other language that could be prepared and presented as an alternative? And then the response is in your board packet from the attorney in regards to that question. And that information is all in front of you.
Okay, open up for discussion and questions here. And I think, as a board, I think we all agree that some of the books here need to be looked at and taken care of, right? We agree. I think we're coming down to how do we find out and what do we use for reference for our media center person to use as a reference. Right now, if you look around out there, there are 9 different groups you can go through to read a book. There's 9 of them. Which one of those 9 or 2 of those 9 or 3 of those 9 do we actually use to rate our books? How much power do we give to our media center person who we hired so that her pull this thing together and do a good job for the district and for our parents and for the schools. So let's go forward and see what the comments are. What questions do we have? Who wants to talk first? Rob? No, I'm joking. Okay, Rob, what? Miss Amy?
I'll start it off. So I called MSBA and asked them, I said, do we need language? Explain the situation that was going up here. Do we need specific language due to sexuality? We're having an issue with what language to put in there to ensure that books are appropriate for our students. And he said, you have it right now. It's in the policy. I said, we do? I said, where? What do you mean? So we went through the policy and it reads, school boards may decline to purchase, lend, or shelve or remove access to library materials legitimacy based on, I'm not going to read 1 because that's practical reasons including but not, limited space shelf and where damage or other things, but it says number 2, legitimate pedagogical concerns including but not limited to the appropriateness of potentially sensitive topics for library's intended audience, the selection of the library materials for a curated collection, or the likelihood of causing a material or substantial disruption of the work and discipline of the school or, and then compliance with state law. He said it's right in there. He said you don't need to get into the nitty-gritties of adding all these languages that you as a school board can, and I'll read it again, purchase, lend, shelve, or remove. So any one of those is all school district. And that's right here, that's by MSBA. And they took all this from state law. If you look on the bottom, they talk about state law and what we can and can't do. And he said this policy is gonna look different compared to where you go in Minnesota. What they do in Minneapolis may be different than what they do in Fridley, and it may be different than what they do in St. Francis. It's gonna look different, but the policy is meant to be that. Why? Because the school board is a representation of the district in which they serve. So it also says in the selection of library materials, it says under 4, library materials shall be appropriate to and reflect the needs, ages, maturity level, emotional development, ability levels, learning styles, social development, background, diversity, and needs and interests of the students for whom the materials were selected. So again, a school board can remove, they can shelve, they can deny purchasing, all based, we have it right here in the policy. Okay, it's there, it's crystal clear. And so I'm not sure what the big argument is here today. I said, well, can we add what we want to use? He goes, you as a school board every area of the state is going to look different for a reason. But whatever you guys decide, whatever you decide to use, you can remove a book based on appropriateness, age appropriateness. And it doesn't, that we're not gonna get, so anyways, I'm fine with what we have. I'm not sure if we can keep book looks in there or if it becomes part of the procedure, but either that or we just have it come right to the school board and we just bypass the committee, because the committee came forth and said that this last book was okay. I'm gonna say that I would approve, I'm gonna say, sitting here as I've looked at it, that I would say, no, it's not okay. So do we want to put the librarian and this committee through the work of the committee? Or do we wanna do what Rob said and just put it forth to the school board? So, that's we have the authority to remove, to shelve, to do all this based on the maturity of the student, age appropriateness. And I find that some of these books aren't age appropriate. That's my interpretation. But if it's gonna be completely different than the media specialist, why are we gonna send it to the media specialist and have us contradicting the media specialist? Because in my opinion, that book doesn't belong on the library shelf. So that's what I have to say.
Okay, anybody else? I think the big question is really under part 7 down there, 5.7, is booklet. Do you use booklet or what do you use when you're looking at a rating system? And that's where the big argument is at. We have what you're mentioning in the policy already. What school board is eligible to do under 4D, it's right there for us. So I think what comes down to what resource do we allow to be used, what are we going to use? Because it's going to be controversy. One book says this, one book says that. Which one do we balance it? That's the big issue. So what do you think? You want to keep, Mr. Lee?
So my stance this whole time has been not to add that portion of it. Again, Amy, I agree with you. I think the policy is very well written and it covers all of the areas that could be concerned for people to bring forward and for us to look at. By limiting us to using one thing and putting it in policy, we are reacting to a single book, a group of books. We are not looking at every possible book that could be out there that can come forward. Again, BookLooks does not have every book in the system. So we are automatically telling our district, if it's us, if it's our committee, that we're going to limit you because there's a book that may not be in there. And now we have to go through a whole new process where the procedure has a list of multiple things that we can use. That committee has educated individuals that can use all of those and provide the documentation back to the school board to make an educated decision. I don't think it should be part of it. I like everything else that's in it, the way it is. I think it's very transparent. It's a great policy to move forward. And I like the addition of our procedures, and I'm all for adjusting those procedures as we see fit.
After that, Brandon, is Roman numeral 4D, is that in our current policy or is that in the proposed revision? The part that Ian just talked about. Roman numeral 4D.
Right here.
Yeah, it's redlined, and so I think that is.
I think it's currently in there. Otherwise it would have been red line.
We haven't approved any red line yet, so that's, I would call it an uncontroversial red line.
Yeah.
So it's not in our current policy, but it is in the proposed policy.
Yeah.
The red section here.
Yeah.
And same with
Yep.
if I might add D2, which is the school board may decline to purchase, lend, or shelf or remove access to library materials legitimately based on, and then it goes on as I read, numeral 2, where it talks about sensitive topics and, you know, the intended audience, which again points to age appropriateness of books.
That red can be in the, it's proposed in the policy. We haven't approved that section yet.
Yeah, and then there are parts at the very end of the policy too, Roman numeral 8 and Roman numeral 9 that are also new, and those are based on MSBA's model policy. So everything in red that's underlined is proposed new language that we'd like to make sure is included.
And that was the discussion I had with MSBA, was added, and it is, according to state law, it can be done. School boards can decline to purchase, lend, shelf, and they can remove books. based on age appropriateness. It's right there, and it's all statutes, and it's there for us.
The part that's not included in the model policy would be the book looks rating. Like what Brian was saying, kind of the, I don't know if I want to say controversial, but the part that would be over and above what MSBA suggests and what our attorney suggests. So that would be on.
And that would be, and that's a choice that this community, this board has made to use currently now. That could change in the future, but it may.
And also to get more clarification, I did change the procedure to include book looks as one of several rating agencies. So, one thing I noticed, there's another book that I think is being considered or is being challenged, and some of the other rating agencies don't always mesh, with their analysis, and so one have a higher age range than the other. So they're not always the same. They're different groups of people making the analysis. But we did add book looks, to that list of entities that we'll use to review books.
So we're looking at pulling 5-7 then? Correct? That's where the Beagle says no go?
I don't think
It
anybody.
looks like it's just one that nature's talking about. And Superintendent said it could be one of several we can use. Yep, go ahead.
Until someone makes a motion to remove it, there's no removal on that.
Right.
Motion would need to be
What we're
seconded.
doing right now, we're just having discussion. Once we get together and know what we want to do, we get a motion, a second, we'll make it happen. Just make it simpler and say we want to amend this, amend that, and do this. That's how it's in discussion. Yep. So, we can look at 5-7, and it's been redlined in yellow. The attorney says no go in that whole paragraph. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to throw some things out here, because I don't know if anybody here has read the whole PICO analysis, which was PICO versus, I can't remember who it is, I have to go back. In 1978, there was 3 judges that commented on this, and the court has never held that the First Amendment grants junior high school and high school students a right of access to certain information in the schools. It would be ludicrous, of course, to contend that all authors have a constitutional right to have their books placed in junior high schools and high school libraries. The other opinions here from these judges, there was 3 judges. Let me find it, give me a second here, there's a lot of information here. The school board can set the curriculum, select teachers, and determine initially what books to purchase for the school library. It surely can decide which books to discontinue or remove from the school library. And these judges basically are saying is, and there was the Miller test also, the judges were basically saying there that communities do decide what should and should not be in their school libraries, and that's what us elected officials are for, is to make those determinations. So I just wanted to make those points, because they've not been talked about based on those 2 cases.
And I believe we all feel the same, what you say, we all agree. It's coming down to what resource do we use to identify what book should go where. Age appropriateness, yes, we agree, it has to be at the right level, we agree. But what do we use? What's the final decision on what process we're going to use to determine where that book goes, or it gets tossed out completely? That's where we're sitting at.
Now, I don't know if PICO's the ruling, if PICO's the ruling that talked about taking, reviewing the whole of the book, when making a decision.
Yeah, there's a lot in there,
Yeah,
but it
there's a
basically
lot.
comes down to the community, and the Miller test also talks about, you would not expect, I think they mentioned rural Maine to have the same standards, that community, as, say, Las Vegas or New York City, or we could say Minneapolis or wherever you want, whatever. So again, we do not expect it to be the same across this entire state or across this entire country. It's based on what our community standards are for morality and vulgarity. And like I said in the last meeting, the last 5 meetings, this is the 5th, is we expect our students to behave in a certain manner and not to use vulgarity with each other. And yet, if we provide books that are full, and they're not just here and there, they're full. These books that we've talked about are just page after page after page. We don't expect them to talk that way in school, yet if we provide the books in the library, then we're pretty much sanctioning it, saying, well, I guess it's okay for you to read it. That's all.
So currently we have a motion on the floor.
No.
Yes, we do. We have a motion from the last meeting. At the last meeting, motion was made by Ms. West to remove 7A and B, but add book looks to the primary source for review, seconded by Ms. Johnson. Motion to table by Ms. Anderson, seconded by Mr. Burr. Motion carried 5-2. We have a motion on the table. We have found from our attorney that having book looks in the policy is it could be a violation of the First Amendment. They do not recommend having that in there. I'm not sure why we haven't moved away from that discussion and why we aren't killing this motion. And maybe nobody remembers the last meeting, but I remember it vividly. We tabled the motion.
Thank you for bringing it up. Okay, that was tabled, that is correct. Now we think back. Yeah, Rob?
I guess for me, book looks isn't the perfect system. But to review all these books is gonna take a lot of time and energy from the committee, and then it's gonna come to us. I think a place that rates books that we can look at and not let those books get to the committee and waste time, I think is gonna save a lot of people a lot of time and energy.
And we have a community member that made a great suggestion too. Once you get the books identified, what level they're at, can we now put those in a cage per se, and they stay in there, and only parents can allow student opportunity to get into the cage area. One of our community members had a great suggestion about that. There's something down the road to take a look at also. We take in community members' information, because we don't all have the right answers here. Everybody has an input. So thank you to the community member who gave us that suggestion to age them up if we have to.
Yeah, unfortunately, the attorney didn't like that idea.
Oh.
Brandon and I ran that by, we're looking for a compromise or something, and so that didn't go well.
Okay, I hear that. What you're thinking.
Again, my argument is relying on book looks. So to the point that Amy, you just made about school districts are gonna look different across the state. Not everybody's gonna be the same. We cannot say for certainty that every community member wants to use book looks. We cannot say that every community wants our district to use one thing. We have community members out there. We've had someone that has come up and spoke about keeping books that have been identified. So that tells me that we have more than one opinion, which is what book looks gives us. If I go on book looks, there's a book called Night. Night is a book from Eli Wiesel. If you don't know who that is a Holocaust survivor. That is a true story about his time in Jewish prisoner camps. It has the exact same rating as some of the books that are being reviewed currently, with the same description of inexplicit sexual conversation, not pornography. We do not have pornography in our schools, in our libraries. Pornography has a clear definition. We do not have that in our schools. If we go with book looks, that book is taken away. It automatically is not part of it. The verbiage that we have is no book that has a rating of 3 will be in our district, okay? So that's telling us that history that has happened to some individual is now not allowed in our district. So using book looks solely puts the district in a position that we now have to have discussions on every one of those types of books. Where if we have a procedure that uses multiple sources, because not everybody in our community supports the use of book books. I'm not opposed to book books at all. I'm opposed to it being in a policy as the sole item that we use.
Right. Ms. Pam?
It is not the sole, so let me read it to you. Book Books rating system is based on MPAA, which is Motion Picture Association of America, so it's based on whether kids can go to certain movies. Before any book is purchased for the libraries, including classroom libraries, the book must be looked up in Book Books. And if listed, have a rating of 0 to 2 only. No books which are rated 3, parental guidance required, 4 or 5, may be purchased by any district employee. No books of these ratings, even if donated, may be accepted any district employees to use in the district. If the book is not in Book Books, because they're not all in Book Books, and they're not in all of any of the systems, then refer to preferred tools to assess age appropriateness for each book before making available to students in the district. So it is not the only system, but it is the first system to be used, and then beyond that, because they're not all in there. And I'll guarantee you that if you look at any rating system, every book is not in there. So to refute that, so that's what's in the policy.
And that's where you get into trouble with some of our booklets out here, or policies here, or what do you call it, rating systems. Book books, by the attorney here, our attorney, book books is managed by a group of concerned parents. And the organization does not appear to have any professional library credentials, including the proposed requirements, which will leave the district vulnerable to an argument that the policy does not align with professional standards for library material selection as required by section 134-51 Minnesota law. So that's where we get into the arguments with how good is booklets, how good is grade books or Destiny or Scholastic, common sense, Idlewick. What is the best one? That's what we're trying to determine tonight. Who do we go with? Mr. Nate.
Pam, thank you. You actually made my point. So the book Night, again, Eli Weissel is in Book Books as a 3. So that's telling us right there, it's done. We don't get to look at the other ratings because it's in Book Books. So that's telling me that we do not want to have a book in our library that is a true story of a Holocaust survivor. So that means Anne Frank diaries. But Pam, it does. It says right here, it only, 0 to 2 only, no books which are rated 3. So that tells me it's in Book Books. That book itself is now not allowed to be in our district. But yet, so is this board willing to go, we are not going to have a book, a true story about the Holocaust in our library? That's all I'm saying is we are limiting ourselves. Yes, I get that if it's not in Book Books, we're going to use the other ones. Then why don't we list all the other ones? I don't think it's smart to put one item in a policy.
What was the name of the book again? What was the name of the book?
It's called Night.
Night? Okay.
Night.
N-I-G-H-T,
Night.
And again, a follow-up with our attorney, for those reasons I just talked about, it's advisable to remove the policy, the language in part 5.7, and any required reliance on Book Books rating system. It's going to get us into some hot water, potential legal vulnerability she ends up with in her paragraph. We want to protect ourselves. We all agree certain books need to be moved or caged up. If we can do that. So we're taken out, we move. Yet, what are we come up with? Where do we decide, what are we going to use here, folks? We still have a question.
No, I don't have a question, I have a statement. So I spoke with Brandon and I asked the question, is specific direction such as what tools/resources generally left to operating procedures? Yes, unless specifically identified by law or regulation or recommended to be inserted as part of an MSBA policy, such as testing laboratory policy in policy 416. Nowhere in any of our policies are we directing what tools to use unless it's required by law or regulation. Why are we looking at something different here when we already have a committee that's using multiple tools to analyze what books we reject?
I can answer that question. Because the book that's come forth, the one book, the first book, the only book so far, isn't a history book. It isn't anything of that. It's a sexually explicit book that our committee said, no, it's fine, it stayed in the library. So there's a number of us on here that I don't necessarily trust the committee and what they're going to say is okay. That's why Rob said, let's just put it to the school board. Wow, yeah, wow, because as MSBA said, as MSBA said, this will look different to every part of the state. We're red here, just to let you know. We're not gonna always be on the same page, but I know we're conservative. They don't want this stuff in the libraries, Joe. And you can say, wow, but obviously there's a number of us that disagree with how the committee came up with. They seem to think it's fine that that book is in the library. Okay?
And whatever book the committee works on today, tomorrow, and next year, ultimately, I agree, come to the board, and the board will make a decision to either accept or override.
So the reason why we asked to have book looks put in is that it's probably going to align with the majority of the board. If you want to do it differently, I mean, it's just gonna have that committee get together and then they're gonna say, they're all gonna powwow and say, this isn't that bad, we're gonna keep it in there, it's okay. And then it's gonna come to the board and then the board is gonna look at it and say, it's out.
Yeah, ultimately.
So she asked the question, why do you want book looks in there? I'm answering the question. That's why we put book looks in there.
So we all have agreed to add community members to our committee. So if our committee comes back and the community members have spoken that are in that committee and they say, you know what, after we did our review, we want to keep a book. Again, I'm talking about all books, not one book. We should not be writing a policy based on one book. Okay, we should not be writing a policy based on one book. We are writing a policy that can cover everything, which Amy, the portion that you talked about with the section 4B1 and 2, that covers it, right? That gives us the ability to look at every book. You keep bringing up one book, The Meat Earl and the Dying Girl. In book look summary, this book contains inexplicit sexual nudity, but we keep saying it says explicit. In their rating, it says inexplicit. I am not talking about a book. I might agree with you that the book needs to be appropriate to certain levels or not in our schools. Absolutely. But when we look at a policy, it should not be specific to one book. We have to be able to encompass everything. Having book looks in the policy doesn't allow us to do that. It ties our hands, okay? And again, to use the book that keeps getting brought up, it doesn't even say explicit, right? It has a rating of 3, which then our verbiage would go gone, but we keep talking about it as an explicit. But itself is contradicting, right? So then why would we use one item to make a decision? Okay, I want us to be able to use multiple things to give our district, and I trust our staff to go and do a thorough review and provide us the documentation, okay? I like that we have a policy that brings it back to the school board and allows us to have this discussion. But you know what? I want people that are educated better than I am when it comes to library materials to give me some information that I can use to make a decision, just like we use lawyers, just like we use other things.
So parents and people don't need to be educated to find out what they think is appropriate for their students, okay? I'm not gonna start with this, only our school staff know what's best for our children. Because that's not it. And I'll say the second thing. Even our attorney says in here. Secondly, and relatively, there may be an argument that BookLook's rating system originates from an organization with specific ideological perspectives. While its website disclaims any affiliation with other organizations, there has been some reporting that BookLooks is connected to Moms for Liberty. Ooh, that scary group that cares about their kids. Took my breath away. Moms for Liberties and the organization founded by a Moms for Liberty member. These circumstances may raise questions that reliance on the booklooks rating systems effectively excludes materials based on viewpoint, which would violate the First Amendment. As we've said before, school boards, as said by the state, and my computer went dead, but we have the authority to shelve, to remove, to buy books, okay? Now, if we want to talk about, if we want to look into whoever has made all these different, who started all these different books, that book review, was Common Sense one of them?
Yes.
That you like to use. Well, have you looked into who started Common Sense? Should we discuss about that?
Yes, please.
Shall we? Okay, so the one who started Common Sense, which apparently everybody seems to really like here, came out, and I'll get my image. San Francisco, May 5th, 2021, James P. Steyer, founded and CEO of Common Sense, issued the following statement in reaction to the Facebook Oversight Board's direction on Donald Trump's ban. Donald Trump should be permanently banned from Facebook a long time ago. What people need to understand now is the Oversight Board, which has still left the door open on this issue, is not cured, but for all ails is on social media. Misinformation, disinformation, still rampant. Should I go on? So stop with the, we're not gonna use booklooks because Moms for Liberty, they're so scary, but we're gonna push someone from the left. So who do we use?
But one thing, just a reminder that the procedure includes both Common Sense and booklooks.
And our point is, if you wanted to align with the current board and the community, which elected the new board, it would be easiest to go with a certain look. I mean, I'll say booklooks. It's gonna align. We're not gonna hit everybody, but you look at the outcome of the last election, it doesn't take Einstein to figure out where our community lies.
So, we've talked on this board table about neutrality, right?
Yep.
That we do not want political views in our schools, correct? We've talked about it over and over and over. Okay, Moms for Liberty is a political organization, right? Common Sense sounds like it could be a political organization, right?
Sounds like Liberty.
Stand by, Pam, stand by.
Moms for Liberty specifically says that they are a political organization. It says it. So now we are picking a group that is using a political organization which goes against our neutrality and what we all want on this board for our district. All I'm saying is, why don't we let our procedure give us multiple options? So then we can have 9 different reports, and then as a board or as a committee, we review those reports and make our own determination off of it. Not saying you have to use everything that comes out of Common Sense, not saying everything that comes out of booklooks. Have it as part of our procedure. Why would we hamstring ourselves by using just one, which you just said is tied to Moms for Liberty?
No,
right?
I said the lawyer said that. I didn't say that.
No, but you said
I don't
it's
know
not
if
a
it's
bad
true
thing.
or not. I haven't looked, I don't know.
But it's a political thing. So then why would we tie ourselves to a potential political entity when we have multiple options in the procedure?
So it didn't work last time.
Stand by, Pam, stand by.
Again,
So,
one book.
Stand by. Are you still talking?
So I'm fine if you want to add Common Sense and booklooks, and if they fail out, one of them. That way we have one to fall back on. If what doesn't pass booklooks, maybe if it passes Common Sense but doesn't pass booklooks, or booklooks doesn't have it. But my point is, yeah, this is about neutrality. But again, as MSBA said, this is going to look different no matter where you go in the state. And I can tell you the community that I live in for 35 years isn't anything like Minneapolis. It isn't anything like St. Paul, okay? It's very red, very conservative. I don't think we have a red representative in this, or a blue representative in this district. I do not believe so. I believe they're all red, all Republican. I don't want to bring it into the classroom, but that is a viewpoint. And we're looking at a viewpoint with a book, not a political entity, a different viewpoint. Where one person says, that's fine for a 5-year-old to read. And you have another person say, oh my God, I don't want my 5-year-old to read that book. It's not appropriate in the classroom. So this isn't a political, oh my gosh, vote for someone. That will stay neutral. I'm always for that. I'm trying to figure out how do we save time so that every book that goes to the committee, they're gonna look at Common Sense, who is a Democrat, left ideology, and then it's come to the board, and the board, I'm not gonna be here, but the board's probably gonna say, nah, it's out.
So again, we have, multiple organizations we can use. So it's gonna come down, we take 2 or 3 out of here, we talk about common sense, talk about book looks can be looked at. You wanna make it 3, make it 4. What is the board? We agree, but let's take a look at it. You wanna use 3 or 4 resources. So in case one goes down, one no longer around, you still got 2 or 3 left out there to look at. And so, how do you feel about that? You wanna pick 3 of them and go forward with it, let the committee work with it, let a professional librarian work with it? What do you think, Jill?
So the committee used 8 last time. How do we know that the 3 that some random group that in 2024 picked are gonna still be viable solutions in 2025? That they're not gonna go off the rails, first of all. Second of all, why are we picking places to use when we have a committee that is using 8 or 9 resources? We shouldn't be dictating in our policy what is being used. We don't do that anywhere else in policy unless it's required by law. And I'm really not sure why my partner in policy would all of a sudden want to do that. Second of all, why would we be going against our legal advice? And opening our district up to lawsuits, great idea for you leaving the board, leave us all screwed. I mean, that's really smart. And by the way.
So I'll read it again.
No, stand by,
Read it again.
and then hand up, and then wait, stand by, Jill, you done? Okay, with that?
I just think our concern is, that this has already gone through a process, and now it's coming to the school board. I'm all for keeping book looks in there. I mean, if we were to call a vote right now, I'd be, yes, take it exactly the way it's written, including 7, and go with it. That's my opinion. I think that encompasses, a lot of what our community would want to encompass.
Let's call
If I could just add one thing, Mike and I were having a sidebar conversation, I want to be transparent about what it was. So Mike was asking what current grading systems are the procedure. Currently, we have Tidal Wave, which includes multiple rating agencies. Amazon, Common Sense Media, and Booklooks. Amazon, of course, includes grading systems from publishing companies. So I just wanted to be forthright with our sidebar talk. Those are the ones that are in our current procedures.
And we all agree that those, you got one, if you want to go into it, I guess you could say Common Sense, San Francisco, Booklooks, out east in South Carolina and Georgia, where that came from. Then you got 2 neutral books here. So we got 4 to work with. So I'm just looking at trying to pull this thing together, folks, so we can have good policy here and move forward. Yes, ma'am.
I want to make a comment about Tidal Wave. Our community can't get into it because you gotta subscribe to it. So I don't know how the other ones are. And to answer the question regarding Booklooks, the reason why Booklooks is valuable is because it tells you by page number exactly what's written, and I have not seen that elsewhere. Also, I'm seeing is a grading system. So I want to call the vote and move on.
All right, let's take a look at this here. We had a motion. What was the motion in the second we got? 2 weeks ago.
Basically, what's in the board packet.
Basically, what's in the board packet. The adding the 6, including 7, and all red lines.
I think it'd be policy 606.5 V4.
Yeah, whichever it is what's in the board packet.
I think that was the.
I can't see where's the version.
Yeah, Brandon saying yes, so.
Yeah, it's this right now.
That's the current motion on the table.
Yes.
And so the board is saying to keep 5, 7. Booklooks only.
Please read it again, so it's not Booklooks only.
See it.
I read it out loud. It's Booklooks, and if it's not in Booklooks, use other resources. So it's not just Booklooks, but Booklooks first. So yes, read it. I call the vote.
But you
What
wanna
else do we
put,
have to do?
you wanna put the other three into it.
No.
Her motion would be to approve what.
To approve what we have.
Yeah.
It's to approve what's here.
Yeah. Can I, add just one thing? I'm sorry about this. I've been rereading that part, number 7, and it specifically talks about purchasing. I don't think that's what you're looking at. My guess is that you don't want any of those books in the library. So we can either change the policy, or maybe better yet, if that's the will of the board, to approve the policy and then have a separate motion directing me or district staff to remove other books that don't change, that are 3 through 5 on both.
Can I reread it for you again?
Yeah.
No books of these ratings, even if donated, may be accepted by any district employee to be used in the district.
That's what I'm saying.
If the book is not a book, listen.
Yeah, but the book's already in the media center. And so I think that the way that was worded, it was purchased or donated to the district. But I think if I'm reading you correctly, if it passes, you'd like us to remove the books and booklets with ratings of 3 to 5. So it's not just purchasing or donating.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it would be to use that in the whole process. Thought we had that in there. In the challenge.
In the challenge.
Yeah, so I just want to be clear about that, and
So we don't have to go and revise.
and again, I'm a proponent of letting kids and parents choose their own books.
Yeah.
So I don't like version 4. Personally, I don't think we should have booklets, because we should really look at, or just booklets, because we should look at the totality of the worthiness of the book. Okay, so I just want to be that clear, but if it's gonna pass, then I think we'll need like maybe a second motions, directing me to remove the current books in the library, if you want.
That are being challenged.
Just the challenge ones.
Oh, yeah, or, I just like very clear direction. We'd like clear direction so we know exactly what to do.
Yeah, so I agree. We should put it in the challenge process to use booklets first. So.
We can make a motion to approve that, and it's spin-off, and then we can make an amendment.
After we take this, we will do it tonight. Okay. All right, so let's take a motion. Let's vote on this first, and then we can amend it.
Okay, so the vote's gonna be what we have sent out to us, red line, yellow, and red, whatever's in here, you're voting on. Agree. Okay. Any questions, what are you voting on?
Technically, though, before the motion is approved, the amendment should be made before that happens. Or if you wanted to have a separate motion, but,
Amy, do you want to
You
approve
should have
those
been
minutes?
first.
I have my hand up.
Oh, wait, stand by, people, stand by. We have a motion, have a second. Amendment should be made first before we make the final vote. Correct. Okay, Jill first, go ahead.
So again, we are going to remove books that are educational in nature because our book rating system rated them at a 3. And we're not even gonna look at what the book is about. We're just gonna say, no, it's rated a 3. We're removing it, like that. I just do not understand. This system, booklets, points you to a page. It doesn't even give you context of the book. Is that how we want our kids to learn? Is based on a little paragraph or a little line that says this? When they go into a class, they read this much and they know what it all means? Seriously, you guys aren't even thinking about, you don't even look at what the whole book is about.
I read all the books. Do we call the vote? Do we call the vote? We're going to continue to have discussion.
Okay, let's have an amendment. What's your amendment? Who wants to make an amendment to what we're doing?
Amy, to
Well,
that?
I'm not sure what's.
Okay, so the amendment would be to take our highlighted yellow area. So this is a selection of materials. So we would take booklooks rating system to be used in reconsideration of specific library material. So booklooks rating system to be used first off in the reconsideration of specific library materials. In the challenge process.
Before you're proposing it, I'm not sure, I mean, I guess we can add it to that, the procedure that they use. I'm recommending they use booklooks, because otherwise they're gonna spend a lot of time saying the books are okay, they're gonna come to this board, and this board's gonna say, nope, they're not. So, I don't know if we need to add that, I mean, but for purchasing, we have it in there, right?
And on your amendment, there's a motion. Are you making a motion? For your amendment? Who made the motion for the amendment? Move it there.
Nobody.
Nobody did.
Yeah, I'm making a motion to place it also in the challenge selection.
So you want to redo your original motion?
Just to the challenge.
Is that clear, Darcy?
My understanding is your suggestion is to include the highlighted part in number 7, to say that if a book is challenged, it must be removed from the library if it has a booklooks rating of 3.
Yes, exactly. If it's challenged.
Yeah, and I would suggest probably the formal challenge section.
Yes, and formal challenge. So we follow that same formal challenge.
So we don't
Hopefully
really have a
wording
wording,
on
you
that.
just change your motion a little bit.
Or that would be the amendment.
That would be the amendment.
And again, I don't support.
I
this whole
agree, we
section,
understand that, but
I
that
wanna
would be the
clear.
amendment. This is
All right, so you heard what she said, we're gonna vote on the amendment first. If you roll call
We need a second first.
vote. Oh, who has second?
Second, anybody second?
Second.
Thank you, Annette. Then we had discussion on it, Ms. Amy.
Question. These are for challenge books that someone challenges. And it's in there that if it isn't in booklooks, they can use something else, am I correct?
Correct.
So it isn't like, oh my gosh, we can't.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so we got the amendment, we'll vote on that, and we'll come back to the original motion to include the whole, policy we have in front of us, Ms. Gill.
Expanding the criteria beyond what is already in policy would likely risk the First Amendment challenge. The existing language contains comprehensive criteria for assessing questionable or inappropriate content and provides the basis under which the materials inappropriate to the student may be excluded from school libraries. Attempting to include additional, more specific criteria would run the risk of imposing content-based or viewpoint-based restrictions on library materials, which generally runs afoul of the First Amendment. I want this board to hear that they are going against the First Amendment, and you are putting this district in serious jeopardy. This is all of you. So when we get a First Amendment challenge, this is all on you, because I will not support it.
All right, Amy, comment?
So if you read in that, and mine isn't there, but it also in our policy, again, if I can reread it, that school boards can shelve, they can remove. This is all given based on age appropriateness, and that we can do this, okay? And MSBA said the same thing to me. I had a conversation with them a week ago Tuesday, and it was a long conversation. I said, I'm getting, what's going on here? 1 minute, we can remove books, and the next minute they're saying, it's unconstitutional, you can't do it. What is it? Can I or can't I? He said you can, and it will look differently. And he stated to me where in there that we can, as I've read, I'm not gonna read it again, but this isn't a First Amendment violation. School boards can decide curriculum, library books, we can remove them, we can shelve them. It's in there, so.
Okay, as I said last time in here, lawsuits are out there. Texas and Florida are being sued right now over the First Amendment. Just so you're aware of it, it is happening. It's not just false information, it's in the news all the time.
We can remove them. Putting book looks in there as our criteria is the problem. And that's what the attorney kept saying. So we can remove them, yes. Putting a specific criteria in there that we're using is the First Amendment issue. And if you don't believe that, I don't know why we have attorneys on staff. I don't know why we pay for all of this. If we don't trust our staff, freaking fire them. I mean, you said you don't trust them. Why aren't we here? Why are you here? I don't get that. Because sending that message to our staff that you don't trust them is disheartening. I would not work for an employer who sat at a board table and said, I don't trust my staff. That is awful.
You can keep coming at me, John, I'll come right back at you. I can see that, but I can tell you something, when it's apparent that this community doesn't want these books, and we have a community saying, this is fine, we're gonna keep it in, and you and I both know how it's gonna turn out when it comes to this board. Okay, it's gonna get removed. We can remove them, Jill. We can remove books.
I'm not saying we can't. I'm saying putting booklets in there is the problem. And that's what the attorney said.
If I could reread that section, she said she doesn't. Hold on. She said she doesn't recommend, what was the word? It isn't that we can't put it in there. Do you have it in front of you?
It's here somewhere.
Where? It says, the legal opinion in any language in there could be proved, but there is this, let me find it. She didn't say that it couldn't be put in there. She said that she had, I'm not gonna state what she said, but I gotta find it. She talked about book looks being, who it's supported by. Proposed language would mandate reliance on a rating system, book looks, to be determined which books may be purchased or used in a school. The requirement raises legal concerns that could expose the district to challenges. I disagree with that, and I'll tell you why. It is stated in law that we can remove books based on age appropriateness. So how are we gonna figure out age appropriateness? We're gonna use something to gauge what is appropriate for students. Quickly. And so she may not like book looks, as I read underneath, I can see she doesn't like book looks. But, if you wanna add a different one in there, Joe, go ahead. But again, this board can decide what's age appropriate. There's a lawsuit, we've been told over and over again, we can do this. We don't have to say it's sexually explicit. All we have to say is it's not age appropriateness. And we can remove it according to state law.
But the catch is that we have multiple rating agencies that would allow it in a high school. Maybe Booklooks doesn't for some of the books.
And I agree with you, but in speaking with MSBA, they left this wide open, knowing full well that this policy and how it's put forth will look different than no matter where you are in the state. So if you're in a more conservative district, they might do things differently than a very liberal district. That's just the way it is.
Did he view this particular, the V4 policy that was proposed?
He said we talked about the board's ability to remove books and how we can remove books.
So he did not look at this particular policy that uses just Booklooks to make the decision?
It's not just
No, but it's not just book looks.
Yeah, Booklooks, if a book is rated at 3 through 5, we cannot purchase it. And with the amendment, we would not be able to, or we would have to remove it. So it is just using book looks if the book is in the system. So what I'm saying is that, by the way, Terry Marr, you talked to Terry, right? He's one of the most brilliant guys I've ever met. And he always gives good advice, always. But if he doesn't see the actual policy that's proposed, he's not able to give a full opinion on it. And I also know Terry well enough to know that he would refer us to the attorney to review this letter. He always does. He's very careful. So in a general sense, clearly he pointed out, the new policy changes that, I think all make sense. But I don't think we can use his opinion about this policy because he hasn't even seen the policy that's proposed.
We talked, you're correct, we talked in all fairness about the school board's ability to remove by books, and we can remove them based on age appropriateness of the book.
We have that in the policy. And that had hand up too, yes, or Nate? And that,
Where are we at with voting on this? Because
well, we're trying to come back to this.
we ended the debate.
We ended it, and we're
When
supposed to call it.
Well, you said you had an amendment.
Yes,
And
and it
the
was
amendment
seconded.
is debatable. It's debatable.
I
Okay,
make a motion, we approve it with the amendment.
well, stand by, okay, stand by. Nate?
Our policy as written has the ability, it says individual student access to specific library material. A parent or guardian may request the access to specific material in the library materials collection be restricted from their student. So again, we are not, the argument is not on if we can remove books or not. The argument is that we have one system to do it, okay? So if we put it in the procedure and allow the procedure to come back through and it makes it through the board and says, no, what, we can keep it, but that parent still says, I don't want my kid to have access, our policy allows them to restrict it. We have a policy that covers all of those circumstances. Why again are we going to limit ourselves to one agency, to one thing? We have a policy that covers everything. It has nothing to do with if we can remove it or not. I agree that a school board can remove books. That is our role, I get that. But using one person or one item's opinion on it is where I struggle. Because our entire community doesn't agree with one opinion.
Amy?
So I'm fine with book looks. Would you like to add one so you're more comfortable? Add one, do an amendment.
Well, you can't amend the
We
amendment.
have to, well, if he's not, I'm just saying, he's saying, I'm not comfortable with just one, add one in there. So there's two of them, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that.
Just a caution, because if we did that, then they have different assessments.
Then it comes to the board.
Then it comes to the board anyway, but I think that might be true in a lot of these cases.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Okay, Jill?
And adding another one would just compound this issue, because at this point, the attorney has said adding any sort of business that would be our rating system to use as the only two that we're looking at is a problem. So our committee is using 8, they're using all of them. We don't let our kids only read 2 paragraphs or 1 sentence and know what the entire book's about. Or maybe we should go to that. I mean, might make it easier for the teachers. Here's a sentence for them to read, and they know the entire book.
Okay. Discussions, Pam has an amendment on the floor. So we're gonna be voting on, Pam, and Amy has some language into it, right?
Yeah,
The
Carson's got
amendment
it.
first.
Yep, the amendment.
The amendment, yeah.
We're talking amendment, okay, clarify your amendment again, because I know what we're voting on. What's your amendment?
Carson said it well. Carson, can you repeat it?
I wish I could watch the replay.
I know, right?
That's the exact wording.
Make sure we have it.
It's, hold on a second, I was looking at
Okay, know what you're voting on for the amendment, and then we'll come back to the overall motion.
And this would be under the formal challenge part of it. If a book is, if a book is challenged, then it will be removed from the media center if the book look rating is 3 to 5. I said that our last time.
That's good. No, that was simpler, I think, when you said it now.
And then I think probably just add, if the book is not in book looks, then refer to the preferred tools for each providers.
Okay, so that's the amendment. Let's go on the amendment for roll call. We're gonna start. Jill?
No.
Nate?
No.
Annette?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Star, no. On the amendment. So amendment passes. Okay? Now we're gonna go back to the original motion.
With the amendment.
With the amendment, and what we're gonna be voted on is what's in the paper right here. What's red, what's yellow, domination, we're gonna vote what's in here. Correct? And in here it says book looks only. Only book look can be used, what it says in here. All right.
And just a reminder is that we, as we go through the challenge process, we do have to report it to the state of Minnesota. I don't know what they'll do, if anything, with the information, but we will have to report it.
Okay, we're gonna go back to the motion. Discussion on the motion, I sit here, the way we look at it, the way we read it, they had a hand up. Nothing? Anyone else? Questions, issue, comments on what you see on the paper right now? Okay, Nate?
I do have one clarifying question, maybe Brandon knows this, but again, the Minnesota statute talks about, requires the district's library material policy to be administered by an individual with appropriate professional qualifications as a librarian. So if the amendment that just passed, again, is going to take away the use of a committee. If a book is challenged and it has a rating of 3, there is no committee, there is no appropriate professional qualifications as a librarian to administer our policy, correct? That's what I'm reading it as. Again, state statute tells us we have to have, and Brandon, you have to correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm interpreting it wrong, but it's pretty clear, will be administered by an individual with appropriate professional qualifications. So our policy, if I challenge a book and it has a rating of 3, it automatically goes out. There is no review committee, there is no school board review or decision. We are not meeting state statute. So I just want us to be clear what we are voting on and what we are trying to approve. We are going against legal opinion, we are going against state statute, which we can't, right? Law trumps any policy we make. All because a book that was challenged made it through a committee, and so now we want to make a policy so that never happens again for one book. Again, we're making a policy for one book right now.
You?
And statute 13451, subdivision 5 states, upon completion of a content challenge or reconsideration process in accordance with the governing body's adopted policy, the governing body must submit a report of the challenge to the Commissioner of Education that includes the title, author, and other relevant information, the date and time and location of any public hearing, which we're now saying there will be a public hearing, held on the challenge question, including minutes or transcripts, so we're going to violate that law. The results of the challenge, well, we're not going to have a challenge because we're just going to use book looks. So we're going to violate the law again. And accurate and timely information on who from the governing body of the Department of Education may contact with questions or follow-up. Who's going to answer those questions? Because I'm not as a board member.
Okay, yeah.
It's still going through the committee. I mean, if somebody complains about a book, it has to go to the committee and they're gonna say, it's a 3. So it's made it to the committee, so.
The language we just approved as a board just said automatically removed if it's a 3 to 5. That's what it just said.
If it goes to the committee.
In the formal challenge.
In a formal challenge.
Formal
challenge.
challenge. That says it doesn't, the committee has no say then.
Right.
It automatically goes away.
There's no hearing. We violate the law.
That's great.
All right, so we're gonna move on. I do want to say one last comment. You all got that piece of paper. And with your law degrees, you're telling me, that's right, with your law degree, you're arguing against our attorney. That's what you're saying when you vote for this. You're saying if you got a legal backing and legal knowledge to take on our attorney to say, you're wrong, attorney, I'm a better attorney than you. That's what you're saying if you pass this thing. That's how I look at it.
So,
Yep.
Miss Amy?
so I've heard the lectures. So what do we do when you feel like time and time again, you place out where the guidelines are, what's appropriate, what is not, and you're constantly, go away, little minion, you. We don't need to hear you, but we're the experts.
We don't need to hear.
We don't need to hear from you people. Because that's what you do over and over again. I've had it with SEL, where I brought up concerns and oh, go away, you little fly. Shh. She's still buzzing around my head. And yet I ask, have you gone to the SEL website? No, I haven't gone, I haven't looked at one thing. I'm stating where we're coming. So what do we do on this side? You blocked me from having neutrality.
I did.
I know. So now we're getting, oh my gosh, shame on you guys. Shame on you guys. What are we supposed to do when we're not listened to? We're told to just be quiet and go away.
Yeah, I think
We've given you ample opportunity of how do we get there, and all I hear is, nope, we can't do that, nope, we can't do that, no, we can't do that.
Then why did we go to our attorney to ask for her advice? So, okay.
Well, a lot of the attorney's advice was she didn't like the book.
Let's get moving.
I can just say one comment, and the only reason I'm saying this is that, I don't vote. But I want to make publicly known that I do not support including the book looks ratings, either for purchasing or for removing books. I do not support it. I think we're opening ourselves up to potential issues. I don't know if it'll happen. We're a small school district without newspaper coverage, so I don't know if it's going to happen. But I stand up against the change we got. So anyway,
okay, so
that's all I'm saying.
All right, so let's take.
So, I just want to make another comment. To piggyback on what Amy's saying is, there's been no negotiations here, there's been no coming forward saying to resolve this. There's been no, you continue to talk to our community who's been here, I believe 4 out of the 5 meetings, to tell their story, to talk about how against they are. We've had community members that have brought these books to the attention of the district for over a year. I think it's about a year and a half. And there's not just, let me finish. Please let me finish.
Okay, but then I want to respond to that.
I understand that we did, before this policy passed, we did not have a media specialist and it was you. So we should have continued on with, but not lagging it. So that's the response to your comment. But we continue to just disregard our community, our parents. I have not talked to one parent, and I've talked to a lot of them. I wish I'd have kept track like Mike does, but I've talked to many, many parents, and I have not heard, and community members, and I've not heard one of them that said, oh yeah, this is fine in our libraries. They all say, what, that's in our libraries? No, it shouldn't be in our libraries. And it's not one statement. It's profanity. Per Terry Morrow, it's profanity and vulgarness and not age appropriate. And it's not one statement, because if it was one statement, we'd have a different conversation. It's paragraphs, it's pages. The 9 books, which I don't think were read. I don't know that everybody really looked into those books, but it's full of vulgarity, profanity, swearing, vulgar, terrible acts that are done against minors, with minors, to minors, from adults, from each other. It's full of it. It's not one swear word. It's not one sentence in a book. Taken as a whole, they're horrible. Now, if we'd have had a good exchange here and some compromising, but we haven't. It's all, nope, we can't restrict anything because we might get sued by the author. The suit is from the author, not from First Amendment rights of students. It's the authors. And the authors, of course, are going to say, these are all age appropriate for 14 and up. They're young adult because they want to sell their books. And you know what? You know how the books got into our libraries? They got dumped there because nobody did the due diligence of making sure of what in the world was in them. So now they're bestsellers, follow the money, they're now bestsellers because they're in all the schools across this country. I know they're in schools across Minnesota and Wisconsin because I've checked the libraries and they're everywhere. So yes, they're bestsellers. So, oh, these are bestsellers, let's put them in our library.
So we as a board approved this policy a while ago. So that tells me that the entire board supported a policy that had a procedure for how to remove.
The entire board did not, but go ahead.
But as a board, we approved a policy that has a process to remove books. So to say that individuals don't want books removed, right? We want a process. I think a policy is great. It shows transparency. It allows us to show the community, this is how we're gonna do it. This is what you can expect from this school district when it comes to a book that you want challenged, okay? When it comes to compromise, I didn't agree with community members on the committee. I didn't. But guess what? We had discussion and I fully support community members. So you can't tell me we didn't have compromise, okay? Again, none of this, on my opinion, is going against removing materials. The sole purpose is relying on one thing and mandating the district to do something, okay? So we have had conversations, we have had compromise. There's multiple red changes in this policy that I support. There's one paragraph that I don't think should be involved. So you can't say that there's not compromise, that there hasn't been support. From my standpoint, there has been change. Yes, was the policy perfect the first time we passed it? No, it wasn't. And I think we all agreed on that. But we knew we had to have a policy in place and we had a process to work it.
Okay, Pam?
The only change that you're talking about was in the original MSBA policy, but it was not accepted by a policy member and not even talked about, because I was in the meeting. So it was in the original MSBA, so it's not really a compromise. It's going back to what MSBA recommended to start with. And all the rest of these red lines, our only red line in this is book looks. All the rest of it was already there and has been revised, I believe, just from further discussions with whoever.
Well, because
it wasn't fully upped, I think, originally when it was first passed. And when it was first passed, our board member, Ms. Anderson, flat out said, it can always be revised. And so the board, not the entire board, the board passed it as a whole.
And to be clear.
With the idea that it could be revised.
And to be clear, I said that maybe multiple times myself, that to Ms. Anderson, that this can be revised many times over. It's a building material, I can start to finish multiple times. We're always doing is repeating ourselves here, folks. We just have Rob speak up, and we last speaker, Rob.
I second what you just said. We are just spinning our wheels here. Let's just get it done with a call the question.
Second. Call the question.
It's a 2/3 vote.
Okay, you call the question? Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Call the question, requires a second. What's that? You want to second that? Okay. Call the question, requires a second. Is it debatable? No. Is it amendable? No. All right. Ready to vote? We're going to do a roll call vote. Okay?
Is this a vote on the calling the previous question or the
Yep.
actual motion?
Well,
To vote on the call the question.
we're voting on the overall.
No,
Just to call the question.
call the question.
We're just voting to call.
You call the question. Yeah.
We're just going to call the question. If it passes, then we vote on the motion. If it doesn't pass, we can
Right.
still have discussion.
Okay, call the question. Bill?
No.
Nick?
Yes.
Annette?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Rob?
I like how you did look. Doesn't use the Rob on there. Yes.
Amy?
I'm gonna side with Jill on this one. I'm gonna say no. It's not a surprise.
Okay, and I say no too. Motion fails. Okay, 2/3 vote. to pass the call to question, 2/3 vote. It fails, they will be strong about it. All right, now, yes, ma'am.
So I've always prided myself on coming to the board with open ears and I listen. And I've always said, there's times when I'm not gonna shut down and you might talk me into something, okay? So I'm concerned when Jill mentioned that does it require when a board is challenged that we have to have a hearing? Yes, you're saying yes. So I would agree with Jill on this because I'm not one, I want to do this right. So I believe that we need to take out the book looks out of the challenge and know that you need to trust the board when it comes to the board. But I want to follow state law, which then reads that we have to do what, Jill? Can you read that again?
Upon completion of a content challenge or reconsideration process in accordance with the governing body's adopted policy, the governing body must submit a report of the challenge to the Commissioner of Education that includes the title, author, and other relevant and identifying information about the material being challenged, the date, time, and location of any public hearing held on the challenge in question, including minutes or transcripts, the results of the challenge or reconsideration request, and accurate and timely information on who from the governing body, the Department of Education may contact with questions or follow-up.
The only thing, it does not say that a public hearing is required, but it does say that if one takes place, that we have to provide that information to the department. That's how I interpret it, and I checked with either Terry or the attorney, and they agree with that. It's odd that it's written in there when it's not required, but that's.
So the hearing is not required. So some districts may or may not have a committee, is that what and I'm just trying to fill this out to find out where we go.
I think my interpretation of a public hearing is that if there's an issue in front of the board, that anyone can come up to speak in favor or against that particular issue. So I don't think that is required at any level of the reconsideration process. That's how I interpret it.
And I would interpret it differently because statute says upon the completion of the content challenge, and then it goes on to say the challenges of the Commission of Education that includes 1, the title, author, and other relevant identifying information about the material of the challenge, semicolon. 2, the date and time and location of any public hearing held on the challenge in question, including minutes or transcripts. 3, the results of the challenge or reconsideration request, and accurate and timely information. It's not saying that you don't have to do it. It's saying 1, 2, 3, and 4. You have to include all 4 parts.
But it doesn't, nowhere in the statute does it say that we have to conduct a public hearing, but that part says that if there is a public hearing, that we have to provide that along with the other information. It's really awkwardly worded, and I think the legislature should clean that up. But that's my understanding, and was it the attorney or was it MSBA?
Yeah, the attorney did respond to the public hearing. It says Minnesota Statute 134.51 does not require public hearings regarding challenged library materials. Rather, it requires only that if the district chooses to hold a public hearing on such a challenge, the district must disclose to MDE the date, time, location, of minutes, and transcripts of the public hearing. Any public hearings held by the Library Materials Review Committee would not necessarily be subject to policy 207 because that policy expressly applies only to hearings of the school board. Any public hearing of the school board on such matter, however, would need to follow policy 207.
Okay, so I'm sorry it's clear as mud, but just I didn't want to set expectations.
No, but that does clarify, that's what my question was, that does clarify that there doesn't have to be a public hearing. So I just needed that before
Okay, we still got a motion on the floor. The amendment failed to add in information, but this was the vote on, which you have a copy of. It includes all the red lines, all the yellow, all everything in here, all right?
But the amendment passed to include that as a reconsideration.
No, the amendment failed, you need 2/3 vote.
Oh, that's the previous question. So the
That was the
amendment
call.
passes, and then the previous question.
I'm trying to keep track.
We're at.
The original motion from last meeting.
With the.
With the amendment.
Yeah.
So, just for clarification, I think where we're at is the amendment passed to add it to, so it's going to be in the purchasing of book books. It will also be in the challenging of the books.
That's
The one
motion
that
currently
failed
on the table.
was the calling of the question, because I wanted clarification on, clarification on what, because what Jill read, I went, oh, so I'm one that's always open and I want to hear. I hear we don't need a public hearing and.
But I think we all thought the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, and then just, we had some follow-up questions, and so we asked that question again, so.
Okay, are you ready to vote on this, policy here? That's what we're voting on, right, from last week, or 2 weeks ago?
As amended.
As amended.
Yeah. Any further questions, concerns? Okay,
I guess,
vote, yeah.
sorry, this is probably just longer. So the book that's currently possibly coming to the board.
Thank you for asking that question. If this passes, then I think we would use the new criteria. And I assume that it's a book looks rating of a 3, and so then it would be removed from the library.
Just one clarify.
Is that kind of the understanding of everyone? If this passes, that's right.
So if this passes, and our lawyer says the proposed language would arguably violate the state law, Brandon, what happens when we violate state law? So if we pass this and it violates state law,
well,
do we follow the policy or do we follow the state law? Because again, we're violating state law if this language passes.
Can you clarify where we're violating state law?
We're violating state law
by what?
Supplanting the library media specialist professional judgment. So again, if we use book looks, it takes away the librarian and the state law requirement of appropriate professional qualifications. And the lawyer specifically said it doesn't say anything about book looks, doesn't say anything, it just says we will violate state law.
She's already looked at it.
And that's a good question.
But if we pass it, we are knowingly violating state law. That's all I'm saying.
That's not what she said. It's not what she said.
The proposed
If you want to read what the lawyer said, go ahead. Pull it up and read what the lawyer said. But she nowhere in there said we were violating state law. If you'd like to find it and read it, I'll wait.
I'm reading what the lawyer said. The proposed language would arguably violate the state law by supplanting the library media specialist professional judgment with an external rating system. It specifically says it from the lawyer.
The fourth line down halfway through, you'll see that. Fourth line down, halfway in, you'll be hearing arguments there. So are you really?
My question still stands to Brandon, and you might not be able to answer, but what happens when a district knowingly violates the state law?
I don't know the answer for sure. I would anticipate it could be dealt with a lawsuit, or there could be action from an state agency, whether it's Minnesota Department of Education or whoever governs this.
Okay.
So I'm confused again because, they brought up the state law with library books, and I think they also funded it. But again, it states right in there that and I can read it again, where we have the right to shelve, to remove, based on age appropriateness of the book. So can we or can't we?
That's why.
I mean, we don't, just because someone in the library says we should buy curriculum or buy a library, we'll say library book, doesn't mean that we have to, school board. We're all elected officials. We are all elected officials. So if I deem it inappropriate, the state law also gives me the ability to remove the book as read.
it has been said many times over, through, many times over, it has been stated, when you go to state law, federal law, one book says this, and 100 books down the road, it says something completely opposite. And that's why you have the attorneys, that's why you have juries to determine which way to go with something. So yeah, you're always gonna be against each other in state law. Yes.
And Amy, I agree that we have the right to remove things, fully understand that. This language goes away from what the state statute tells us we have to do in order to remove those things.
No, I believe maybe the state legislature needs to go in and clean up their language.
But
But until then, we have the authority to remove books, as I've read.
They're in conflict.
Yes, under conflict.
They're in conflict.
Okay.
So maybe it needs to be challenged.
All right, let's move forward. You have the policy. It's all in here. Red line, yellow line, the whole 9 yards is in here. You're approving, which I'll have a copy of, correct?
Plus the amendment.
And the amendment, you're approving this or disapproving. All right, let's move on. Roll call vote. Amy.
Aye.
Ross.
Yes.
Pam. Yes. Annette.
Yes.
Nate.
no,
Leo.
No.
Star. No. We got the vote. It's 4-3. Okay, so pass.
I make a motion to direct the superintendent to reach out to the attorney and also the Department of Education, both of them, to find out how we handle violating the law on the 13451 statute. And how board members will be held accountable for violation.
Is the rest not to be done?
Yeah.
No, the rest.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's move on. Anything else? If not, move on. Thank you, folks. Good debate, good discussion. Let's go on to Ms. Sam. Come on up. Approval of WBWF. I'm like a wrestling show in here.
I'm gonna be transparent, I dismissed Sam, she has young children, this was gonna be her observation, so I'll do the best I can, this was her thing, her baby, so I will do what I can. I will keep it 4 minutes.
I'm watching the clock.
Is it Deb's 4 minutes or yours?
What's that?
Is it Deb's 4 minutes or your 4 minutes?
I was running,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
My profession might be 2 minutes.
Go ahead.
So hopefully you had a chance to look through this PowerPoint from World's Best Workforce, which will now be called the Comprehensive Achievement of Civic Readiness. We say CACR for short, just kidding, it's a lot of words. But I'm going to just show you kind of the difference. That's what the goals were for the World's Best Workforce on the left. And on the right, you'll notice what's changed is the all third graders achieving grade level literacy is no longer in the new goal areas, but they added prepare students to be a lifelong learner. So just so you know, that will be a switch going forward. So these goals were already reported on earlier this year, so I'm actually going to move forward beyond these. Now, while the third grade one is going away, we're gonna hang on to it for our 3-year goal check that we said we were doing, even though we're not required to report on it any longer. We thought we would keep it for the 3 years so that we could just see the progress, whatever does that. And so I'm gonna move into the new goals. So we are keeping this goal that was from before, because we are tracking for 3 years to see if we can have growth. We are hoping because letters training occurred, they have a new curriculum they're learning, that this goal, we will see some increase because of some of those initiatives. Same with third grade, teachers are all in letters training, so we hope to see some progressive growth. And this goal of racial economic achievement gaps, and we are looking at with students with IEPs, again, special education teachers are also in letters training. So we're hoping this letters training is going to impact a lot of learning. And then our 9th and 10th graders meeting reading proficiency. As Heidi had said, middle school is doing intervention, so is high school. that is a new layer of support for students. And so during their SAINS time, they also have some reading intervention, as well as some school-wide goals around some academic language. So we're hoping to see growth. And then hopefully, because we have those kinds of supports in place, we're gonna have continued graduation growth, as well as there's a lot of tutoring and things in place to help support kids that are struggling. And we are becoming a very data-rich group of teachers who are digging into data to really see which kids are struggling and who do we need to focus on and what is the focus we need to do. And that would, I would say, is some new behavior, especially in the secondary. So I really see that all of these goals have potential to have some great growth. And then our newest one, we're gonna track preparing students to be lifelong learners, starting with our 6th graders. And looking at their report cards, comparing their opportunities for improvement to being proficient. And so we will track this one now for 3 years based on report cards. That should be 4 minutes. Questions?
Questions, concerns? New changes coming down? More data being collected here, looks like, Ms. Pam?
Yes.
Nothing? All right, thank you for coming up tonight. Approval, memorandum of understanding of technology. Do I have a motion? Oh, is there no speaker on that, sir?
No, we have to do that.
We have to go back to Sam Ward, to curriculum director. Is there a motion to accept?
So,
Second? Second by Amy, thank you. Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion passes, thank you very much. Understanding technology, is anyone speaking on that? Okay. Motion to accept?
so many.
Thank you, Rob. Second? Is there a second? Star seconds it. Any discussion? Yes, Pat?
So, why is this in an MOU, I guess? My concern is, we're making these changes, but why are we putting them in the contract?
Yeah, go ahead.
So there's a new position that's been created that both parties, the technology bargaining unit and the district believes it belongs in that bargaining unit. But we're not negotiating the contract right now. So the memo of understanding is to bridge us to the next negotiations.
Because it's a management position, right? So typically we wouldn't have, so again, I believe we're dealing with, so Andy Charrier, help me get this straight. Andy Charrier was not in the union agreement, correct? And part of this is replacing him, right?
I can answer part of that. And then
Yeah, because I'm a little confused with why it's.
So Andrew Sherrier was a director of educational technology. We replaced him with contracted services.
CISO.
Yeah, with CISO.
Okay.
And so this is different from that change.
So we're keeping CISO?
Currently, yes.
Currently?
Yeah.
But I thought you said, because CISO is contracted, so we're gonna keep part of CISO and then add this too?
Yeah, and that's part of the decision-making process over the next few months is determining, do we want to keep that contracted service or do we want to try to find somebody in-house? Or do we want to scale back the number of days that that CISO provides to us? So if we scale it back, by a day, then we'll save so much money. A day per week, then we'll save so much money.
Do we have anybody else of this salary level in the union contract?
That's
currently?
Brendan's.
This group did. There was network administrators that were part of this bargaining unit, and those were eliminated years back. And this is a manager position, but Kirsten, correct me if I'm wrong, it does not supervise anybody. The database.
The database?
Yeah.
That's correct.
The database does not supervise, so it is not supervisory.
Okay, so this is just to bridge, and when's the next negotiation?
The contract will expire June 30th. this coming summer, 2025.
So this will be part of that negotiations, whether it goes in or doesn't go in.
Well.
I mean, it's not in, I mean, it's only an MOU right now,
Right.
not precedent setting.
Technically, it needs to be negotiated as part of the next collective bargaining agreement, but most likely the decision will be made with this minimal understanding. It would probably be unlikely for the parties not to put it in the collective bargaining agreement if it's been established and hired for and there's a person in that position. But you're technically correct, it does need to be negotiated again.
Any discussion, any further? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, roll call, please. Amy?
Aye.
Rob? Aye. Pam?
No.
Annette?
No.
Nate? Nate?
Aye.
Jill?
Aye.
Star, aye. 5-7.
I do have two.
What's that, 5-2? We have
5-2, yeah, 5-7.
It's only 10-15. Don't worry about it.
Come on.
You only a couple.
It's only been some vote.
That's.
Yeah, see, it is 7. All right, move on here, Minnesota State High School League, you see that one right there, is there a motion to accept? Thank you, Jill, second by Rob, discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes, thank you very much. Upcoming meetings, preliminary topics are there for you, take a look at. Let us know for one more month to go, one more meeting, school board member report, Amy.
I'm good.
Right, Rob?
I attended APAC, which Jake already gave a lovely presentation of how coming up in February. Coming up, not this weekend, but the following, I'm going to the delegate assembly. If anybody wants some reading material.
Good book you got.
Yes, there's plenty in there to read
I've
through.
seen that before.
If you want to look through it, let me know. Otherwise, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Pam?
I didn't have any committees, so I don't have any work.
Annette?
No, report.
Nate?
There was an insurance advisory committee, I wasn't able to attend, but the update was that they did some housekeeping on, some of our, insurance. And, nothing else significant was there. And then I wanted one thing to highlight, it was on our district, Facebook, they did a great job covering it, but, Be the Change Choir. It is a community ed program that is run through elementary. Miss Nancy Porter, one of our music teachers at Cedar Creek, puts this on for 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. They did it last year. This year it grew almost doubled in size with the students. But their goal is to show kindness and joy to all that they interact with. They are an amazing group. Nancy Porter is an amazing instructor. Teacher, she is infectious to our kids with spreading that joy and kindness. Those students are amazing, and if you want to cry, go listen to a bunch of 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders sing the song A Million Dreams. It was amazing. They are a star for our district, and I'm excited to see that group as they grow throughout our district and get older, and to see where that program goes, because it's only has potential. So.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Bill?
I echo, the sentiments on the group. There was a lot of good coverage of it, and I heard from a lot of parents about how great the program was.
That's it?
That's it.
And like Deb said, I stopped by the, Nexus East Bethel today, because they called me about the veterans letters. And so I still have some left over from our veterans pay program. These letters are going to VA next Monday when I go up there, we put them at the front door. And the volunteers at the front door will pass these out every veteran the next couple of days to walk in the front door. So these letters always delivered, and nothing ever goes in the garbage can. So we always make sure they get used. And also today, they told me, I was over there today is their first anniversary day, that they actually opened the doors. And later, when the students came in. But today is their anniversary day, 1 year. And the young lady talking to me up front there, to find out, she graduated my son Miles. I said, what the heck? So she works over there, and she knew Miles right away. So, all right, anything else to do with the order here? If not, 10:20, oh, 10:19.
5:30 in 2 weeks.
Mr. Jack, can I see you real quick?
Of course.
Thank you.